Hey friends, I'm back again just 24 hours after seeing Martin Leaker here on my channel. I'm with Brian Staveley. Thanks very much for joining me tonight, Brian, or today. I'm glad you could
Yeah,
be
man.
with me, and it's a real treat for me and for my subscribers. Oh, I've
Awesome.
got me running in the
Yeah, I
background.
hear a little feedback. Yeah, I can hear it. Yeah,
Just a
dude, thanks for
little.
having me on. I love having these conversations. So it's good for me. It's a good I don't know, it's good for my mental, to talk to people like you. And I also enjoy doing interviews because I don't have to set everything up and all that. I can just come on and talk and not worry about anything. So it's cool.
Cool, yeah, and just be yourself, which I like about you. You know, you're one of the most direct speaking, outspoken, tireless, passionate kind of it's truth speakers out there. So I do admire you for that. And I saw you the other night doing an interview with a guy about Judy Woods, and blew my mind actually that I didn't realize how long ago it was that you were smashing down doors and trying to get answers and stuff, and that you'd already started to unpick the dustification story. Because for a guy like me who only came to it 2015, really I had to go through all of the various stages of that story until I eventually got to Judy Woods. And there was a period of time in which I gave Judy Woods credence. So it was awesome to hear you talk about that. I know there's more you've got to say about that. So I'd love for you to have a little word, talk to us about where you're at with that. Maybe have a little laugh at the Artemis joke that's going on. I don't know if you even bothered catching any of that, but they scrubbed the launch recently. But not that I'm serious about that, but I know that there's a value to the people who run the corporations to maintain a certain story. So I think it's relevant, particularly as we're interested in trying to help help wake people up, as it were. And when they keep getting doses of the alternate reality, it's hard to kind of break through that. So it's worth talking about that. So
Yeah. Well,
why don't you
I'm
tell us a
glad,
little bit?
glad you Yeah, glad you brought up the Judy Wood thing, and those phone calls that you heard on that show were 2012 and 2013. But I actually, I started my journey into deep into 9/11 about 2 years before that. And I did entertain her theory for a little bit, and maybe we can tell people what that is. So people that don't know, she had a theory that I didn't really entertain it much. Like, I mean, I looked into it for a couple months, but I didn't really believe it. But I wasn't like against it either. Like in the beginning, I was open to all these things. And her theory was the reason the Twin Towers had so little debris and the lack of all bodies and all this stuff was because, well, a directed energy weapon basically evaporated what she called dustified the Twin Towers and turned everything into dust and evaporated all the contents and all this. But going through this different stages of my investigation into 9/11, it turned out for me that I believe that to be complete nonsense. There was a lot of inconsistencies with what she had to say. So, I was a radio host right away. Like I woke up to 9/11, woke up. I don't even like these terms at all, but you know what I mean. So I
No,
woke up
no.
to 9/11. I started my journey, but within a few months, I was already doing radio shows on my website. And within the first year, I mean, I was already given in-depth interviews into 9/11, but
Mm.
much different than the rest of the truth community, which is where I find myself very often, like I do now, kind of with the Mandela effect. With the 9/11, it was cool to say it was an inside job, and it was cool to talk about Tower 7, and it was cool to say a directed energy weapon evaporated the two biggest buildings practically in the world, right? And all the contents of it. It was cool to say they snuck in mini nuke devices and nuked everybody, or all these other theories. But see, when you start to actually look into the details of 9/11, and I do believe now, especially after what we've seen in the last 2 years, it should be a lot easier for people to go back with these new eyes that they have. But when you start to dig into it, it's all the same. It's actors, it's scripts, it's missing death records, it's photoshopped imagery, it's CGI imagery presenting reality. And just like with NASA, or just like with the Rona, right? Once you start to look and it's fakery, 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 how much fakery do you realize, well, this whole thing is a sham? And, that was a very unpopular opinion. As a lot of people know, no planes, the idea of no planes on 9/11 was like, back then, that was the ridiculing thing. Like, oh, you're a no planer. You're a CIA psyop here to discredit the truth movement. Like I always say, I'm always here to discredit the truth movement, right? So, and I'm not claiming to be the first no planer. There were definitely people before me. But, you know, in 2010, it was still very, very taboo. But then when you actually start to look deeper into the buildings, the occupancy, you know, that there's not one video. We talk about how there's not one video of the Earth spinning from space, like, you know, put a camera on the moon and show us that, right?
Mhm.
There's not one video. There's not one video showing the thousands of people coming out of the World Trade Center on 9/11. Now, this would be the Pulitzer Prize-winning shot of all time. It's in the media capital of the world. There's already allegedly 4 helicopters in the air and 50 people that filmed the second plane, right? Nobody panned down and filmed the chaos below. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But, you know, through my first few months, you know, you learn about Alex Jones, and then you learn what they're really there for. And I saw his agenda against this. So I woke up to what gatekeepers were. But there's levels of gatekeepers. And in my opinion, Judy Wood's at that next level of gatekeeping within 9/11, because she's one of the very few of them that will give you that the plane footage was not legit and there were no planes. But she's still pushing the fear of 2,600 people getting crushed under buildings, and pushing it with fucking science fiction. It's science fiction, man. And I'm not saying they don't have directed energy weapons in general. I know that technology exists, but they don't have directed energy weapons that are evaporating the Twin Towers, all the contents within it, all the people, and all that, you know?
That's what struck me was when you were saying, in order to kind of achieve that, they would have had to have had such a setup. And what's the evidence of any of that, you know? So when I hear the term directed energy weapons, I remember what I learned about it, that they'd used some kind of high-tech charge to cut the beams. Hey, is that how you see it, that they cut the beams?
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Like, 9/11 is a controlled demolition. People are right when they say that. But David, when every controlled demolition that goes on in the UK and the US, I mean, they're controlled. They don't have people in the buildings, dude. So it's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And as far as how they actually structurally took it down, cut the beams, thermite, that could all be legit. I don't know. I'm not like a demolition expert, but the thing to remember about this is when you start to look into this, there are huge amounts of missing floors and tenants that were never occupied within the towers in the first place. Yeah. That's why there's such a lack of debris. And that being the case, and knowing that these buildings were built, in my opinion, specifically for this day and for no other reason but to push the world into the state that it pushed the people into, then the building was designed to come down even easier, because there's structurally it'd be a lot simpler to take down because there's not everything all in the way, you know?
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah, you're right. I have thought for some time that it was designed to come down, but also therefore it was built to come down. They knew they only had to hit it in the right couple of places and bring it down. But I just wanted to just focus on the language of the term directed energy weapon, because when I did my research back in the day, I remember learning about this nanothermite or whatever, whether or not that's real, but I understand that if you want to cut a steel bar, then you have to use a shaped charge. You have to shape the charge so that it fires in. So actually, there's an element of truth. See, we think when Judy Wood talks about dosification and all that, she is talking about there is this directed energy weapon, which is the strips of stuff that they put around the beams and when they prepared to bring that building down. So there's an element of truth. But when I first heard her stuff, I had this idea of some sort of Martian kind of laser from the sky, a 747 plane with shooting down a beam, and then it all turned to dust. No, like you said, where's the evidence for that? There's no evidence
for that. And then if you listen to me directly confronting her, and by the way, even though they try and say things like, "Oh, you obviously haven't looked at my book" and all this, I spent a lot of time looking in her stuff. I didn't read through her whole book, but she did PowerPoint presentations of her book, 4 or 5 hours long, and I watched like 4 or 5 of them. That's good enough,
Yeah.
I mean, that's giving somebody a lot of time. Plus, the forums I was in, people did have her book, and anything relevant we needed from it, any images we wanted to check from it, it was all shared, and I had access to all of that. But you heard when I called and talked to her, the way that they tried to just absolutely ridicule me for not propping her up on a pedestal and repeatedly calling her doctor and doctor over and over. And they actually said like this was me trying to decredentialize her and make her like a 10-year-old. And it's just ridiculous. And I asked simple questions, which really just triggered her. Like, okay, so you guys remember the 9? Now, I'm not saying the 9/11. I don't believe it really. And none of the imagery they gave us was real. And I have questions on if the collapse footage was even the real collapse footage. But I'm not 100% sure on that. But either way, what they showed us is all this paper going through the air in the same videos that she's using as evidence for her dustification theory when they show the steel spire disintegrate. Well, this is a CGI video, in my opinion. It's just Hollywood. So, it's prefabricated. So, but she's using those videos as evidence, and she's telling you directed energy weapon evaporated all the people, all the content, the debris like this high when it should be, stories and stories and stories and stories and stories high. Yet all this paper's flying through the air that they dropped for that effect that they did. Remember all the paper that was flying through the air on 9/11? Yes. So I asked her, what is it about paper? It's unbelievable, dude. A lot of inconsistency.
Yeah.
And I think as the overall picture here, when you guys start to look at all the stuff that these people are pushing, and then if you analyze what I've been saying, that it was a complete media hoax, you really start to see what the agenda is. The agenda is the same as it's always been. Fear. Keep everybody in a state of fear. Okay? Now, I'm not claiming to know everything, but if I was to show you Photoshop pictures of the earth, or anybody in this chat, everybody here would laugh and they'd be like, this is ridiculous. This is NASA fakery. Well, and then you would never trust NASA. Like, we're never going to go and trust NASA again. Well, why are we trusting that 3,000 people died in New York when there's all sorts of photoshopping within the memorials? And there's 2,600 missing death certificates. I mean, why are we going to believe them? Now, it doesn't mean you're just going to say, hey, Brian, you're right, it's a complete hoax, but keep digging. And another thing you can do for investigation is like these prominent people that they prop up there, right? As victims, like Todd Beamer, Mark Bingham. When you start to look in the backgrounds of these people, or the pilot of Flight 11, like near me, John Oganowski, you start to look into the backgrounds of these people, the whole thing falls apart. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's ridiculous. And also, we also saw, like when you see with Robbie Parker, and everybody about that event, and everybody says, like, how can anybody believe this because he's out there laughing, right? Same thing with some of these people's mothers the next day on TV. Same thing, laughing on TV, giving an interview about their son that was on a hijacked plane. I mean, you're not going to laugh on the next day. Maybe a couple years later, you can reflect back on your child dying. The next day, you're not on TV laughing about your son's phone call to you saying, Mom, you believe me, right?
No. Okay, so it's like they're putting these things out to test people's faith or trust. You see, for me, it's like, are you going to continue to have faith in these deceivers, in this system that offers you this stuff? Are you going to continue to make excuses for it despite the obvious? And you really have brought out some obvious things. I like the one about the cars, on 9/11 being wrecks, looked like they were car wrecks. You were being very polite about it, but I was like, wow, man, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, at the time I thought, debris has obviously fallen on them, but that's not how those cars were damaged. And along with that airplane wheel and stuff, like, there was a whole lot of stuff dumped there as part of the set. And I'm with you on the idea that those towers didn't have to come down in the moment we thought they were coming down. It could have all sort of happened. They had to come down in that morning, I'm sure, because New York.
I personally believe they came down at the time they told us on TV. So if anybody had a fire shot, they would see them coming down. But with all the smoke they could lay down and stuff, they don't have to show us the real collapse footage. They could have shown us more dramatic looking collapse footage on TV. And why would I trust the collapse footage when I saw a CGI spire disintegrate? I've seen CGI jumpers in the footage, CGI planes in the footage. Like, why do I trust the collapse footage? Now it's not, there's no piece of it where I can say, hey, this is definitely why the collapse footage is not real, like you can with the plane and you can with the jumper. But in my estimation, I don't think they showed us any real video on that day. Well, anything that wasn't pre-recorded. Anything that wasn't pre-recorded, at least,
Well, I've already come to the conclusion from being in London during some of the London events that what they do is the police can turn up sirens blaring, close off a whole area, and it's only later when you get home on news you go, oh, now I know why they did that. But as they close down that area, then the staged event begins. But the timeline for people at home, they would have no idea, because the news would only start to package it in a few minutes or an hour's time or whatever. So they don't. That's how they do it. They'll close the scene first, then they'll pull the plug.
Yeah.
Pull the trigger.
Well, they did it in a genius way. Like, I'm not saying there wasn't anything legitimate going on in the towers. Like, you could go in the towers and there's a subway that went to the basement that brought a couple 100,000 people a day through there, dressed in the same type of attire that people that would work in the buildings in the financial district of New York would just like. They're going to appear to be regular people going in and out. Some of them you're going to assume are in the subway. Some you're going to assume work in the building. People do go in the elevators up to the tourist attractions on the roof, windows of the World Restaurant, and the observation deck. But here's the thing, like, okay, Brian, so you saying that everybody got a call the night before to not to come into work, people would be talking about it. No, I'm saying the people already weren't working in the buildings because it wasn't occupied. Only a small amount of companies that were in on it, like the ones on the top. But now what about, oh, well, Brian, they had to turn people away. That'd be suspicious. Wrong again, because those are tourist attractions, right? Didn't open till 9:30. They told you the first plane hit at 8:45. Well, where are you going? You're not getting within blocks. Haven't you seen the TV? There's a plane in the World Trade Center. You know, we got this blocked off.
Well, and not only that, the moment that happens, you immediately shut everything down, so no one's getting anywhere close to it. But I agree with you. I think that's very easy to control that scene. And yes, it's happened very early in the morning. And even if you saw something, if you were there on scene and you saw something that didn't stack up, you know, who are you going to talk to about it, and who's going to listen to you? You know, everyone's
who's going to listen to you? Yeah. Yeah, who is going to listen?
And then the decredentializing, by the way, Brian, you know, because I heard her say that. And firstly, she's credentialized by giving her this title of doctor. So they're pedestaling her because she went and studied for 3 or 4 years at a school and remembered what they taught her. That's all she's got. And then when it comes to research, man, you sounded like you knew the subject that you should be writing the book, and not her, you know. So in terms, I know that obviously from my own research, I know that there's plenty of people who sit on their high horse with their doctorate or their masters or whatever, and they have done nowhere near the research that guys like you have done, and even myself. So much credit to you. I just wanted to quickly have a quick shout to the old chat roomio. I see my friend Martin Lika. Can't get enough. How are you doing, brother? And thanks for being here last night. Capalicious 420, it does seem to be a good subscriber of yours. Chris from South Jersey, nice to see you again. Hey, Nathan, Squirrel Sniper. How you doing, my friend? Dean HD. Oh, sorry about your leg or your muscle pull. Not Dean, but Squirrel. And Dean, hope things are going okay with you and your various personal things. Who else we got? Salted Cedar, hello. And I missed one on the way through there. Sorry if about Robert Page, greetings. Tommy Tell the Truth, nice to see you. Zetetic Warrior, FE Nation, what up? NH Guy, Boston Guy 51. Cleveland Steve, you brought some of your friends over, I see. Thanks very much for coming and joining us today. I appreciate it. And Brian is a stalwart of the truth-speaking community. So for me, it's awesome to be able to hang out. We haven't met in person, unfortunately, but it is nice to be able to hang out.
Not yet. I as long as they don't roll it back forward again with the restrictions, I would love to come out there next summer and see you and a couple of my other friends out there. You know, Robin, Jason, Roxanne, Dave Murphy, you know, all you guys. That'd be great, man.
Yeah, well, man, that'd be awesome. Because, there's still limits on even coming to your country or to your country. That's the country. It's one of the few times you can say the C word without people being upset. And that word breaks down into 2 parts, doesn't it? Country. The first part, we all know what that is. And the second part is a tree. So I do wonder about the feminine element of that word, country, and how they've kind of used it to kind of mess with us, because it is meant to be like a feminine mother nature, and the tree of life is what we all kind of are living on, and it's meant to be our shared tree. But now we've got these countries with borders and flags and limits, and I'm in Spain at the moment, and a year ago, if I'd been in Spain, a year and a half ago, if I'd been in Spain, I could have stayed here no problem at all. But now I can't stay more than 3 months in 6 months, because some unelected bureaucrats decided that, UK wasn't now part of the EU and blah, blah, blah. And, now I'm limited, restricted on how far I can go. And while I'm moaning about it, when we left South Africa, we're on a South African passport, but Zizi, he's on a British passport. And he got banned for 5 years from coming back to South Africa because we'd overstayed on his visa. We're South African parents. We can't get a South African passport for him because of the visa thing. I mean, the birth certificate thing. He doesn't have the birth certificate. But
Wow.
It's just all this bullshit paperwork that's controlling our lives.
Yeah.
And that's one of the obviously this is one of the things about freedom for the story is to get to a point of like self mastery where there's only certain things that the authorities have any kind of influence over. And me deciding to travel or walk for 1,000 miles in one direction, that should be on me, not on bureaucrats and bullshit and so on. So I that's one of my little grumbles. Anyway, so Hippie Shake says, 29 says, Dave, great guest. Yes, he is indeed a great guest. And Brian, actually, you've been one of the most supportive guys, to the activism cause. And, I was really appreciated that 3 years ago, it's nearly 3 years ago, by the way, you had me on to do my story, so I really appreciate all the support that you give other people, because not everybody in this community is that kind of generous with their airtime, and you're definitely in the front of the pack there when it comes to that. So I appreciate that, and I just wanted to share that with people.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of really good people in these different communities that have a lot of information to give. I mean, we're all into different things, right? So we all have our own take. We all have a lot of good information, and I think that it's great when I can bring people on and you can get their whole story, because people could watch you, or they could watch anybody. Like they could Tommy Tell the Truth, right? They could watch Tommy Tell the Truth, do flat Earth shows, Mandela Effect shows all the time, but never know his story, right? Unless I interview you guys and come on and we go through all of it, and I think people really enjoy it, and I think it's I love doing it. It's something I've always loved doing, especially when I can help people get a little because sometimes it's people with much bigger channels, sometimes it's people with just a couple hundred subscribers, so
and I'm picking myself back up off the floor again, with this new channel. So I do thank you and Dave Weiss. I was at Modern Eco, but David Weiss gave me a shout out, and a few others have been, good to trying to help me along, get the numbers back up again. Dr. Law comes to mind, actually, because he gave me a shout out on Karen's channel just the other day. I was like, man, that's so cool. The guy phoned in Karen's channel and says, give that guy some subs. So I appreciate all the new subs that are here. I haven't done a lot of live streaming for the last year and a half. I've been on the road. It's not been possible. I won't belabor the story. But I am keen to do more. I'm keen to, because it's like we have elements of what we are. We have like this, you are this researcher of particular subjects, particularly of passion. And there's other people like Martin last night, and Karen, and, so on and so forth, doing their thing, running their stall, as it were. But we're still beings, whatever creator or whatever essence we come from, whatever we are, we're still beings, And so the human part of us, the kind of genuine, the soft man in Brian, not the fighter, the guy who's out there having to fight for that. I kind of want to get more in touch with that. There's a guy called Zoom Truth. You must know him, and he is so passionate in the street. He's absolutely like, wah, wah, But I can see inside of that there is actually this just like me, a guy like me who just wants to have a decent crack at life and not be fucked around, and so that's what I'm also interested in, because I've met a lot of flat earthers and truth seekers in the last few years, and I do feel like we are so passionate about our subject area that we don't necessarily always take care of ourselves and look after the inner self, and when you're out there being the warrior all the time and fighting for the thing, that can become you, and you can lose yourself in that modus. And I think that which is, it's great to go out on the battlefield, but you also got to come home and be the softer, you've got to be the human growing soul, or the evolving, or the higher consciousness, whatever they talk about. So that's what I think. And I think I want to talk about that more with men and other people.
You have to bring some enjoyment in your life and not always focus on all the other stuff, and focus on yourself. Like you said, like it took me, so I fell into that. It took me like 10 years, dude. Like I've been doing this for 12 years now. It took me like almost 10 years to realize that, man, I really need to start putting myself first and make changes in my life, rather than 24/7 just trying to always talk to other people. Like, and I never focused on myself. I always put, and I still, speaking these things is still my thing. But I like, I just totally put everything to myself to the side. Didn't give a fuck for a long time. And I also had different, like we probably all did over the years. Hey, everybody's going to want to hear about that NASA lied about everything. Everybody's going to want to hear that 9/11's a lie, right? And you find out that almost nobody wants to hear it. And in fact, it's probably brought you a lot of issues in relationships and stuff, like it did with me and my father, right? And then it's like, okay, like for instance, 2014, right? I started looking into flat Earth because I was already, I already knew that the ISS was fake and satellites, and I was making that gradual progression. And by the summer 2014, I was starting to poke around and look into it. And then once it blew up in like early 2015, and then later on, and we probably all thought, because I know you came in early in the game too, and a lot of other people did. We probably all thought like, wow, this is like, we're gonna get the truth movement and all these truthers, on board with this, and we're gonna like wake up all these people. And you probably thought like, what's the tipping point? We're gonna wake up 50% of the people in the world. That percentage is going down every year for me now. And I don't just mean with that topic, I mean with everything. And what happened when COVID hit and the world went completely fucking crazy in the matter of no time, I made the decision. I need to change everything. I totally realized right then and there, I cannot be part. We're not going to fix the world. We're going to try with the people we're close to, strangers on the internet, right? Yeah. And the best thing to do is make the changes in our own life and do whatever we can to get the fuck out of that system as much as possible, as possible. And it also made me realize that, okay, so for anybody that doesn't know, I'm very much against the thing of the last 2 years. I wouldn't put the thing over my face anywhere. I took 14 flights, all on video, without it on my face. I would speak to people in the street, business owners and all that. And, so because what I just told you about 9/11, right? And by the way, what we saw with this thing going on, what you could always say is, how can't the normies see it? The hospitals were empty like the whole time. They're saying they're overflowing. There's no ambulances. I'll show you the empty hospitals in New York on 9/11. Okay. Maybe you've never seen that, but with the thing that's going on now, it's like mentally, I personally have some bigger ideas that a lot of people don't like when we get into the Mandela effect and stuff later, and what I think this place is and human consciousness as a whole. And I do think that people do take consciousness updates. And I think the entire world, and we talked about this before they announced the Rona thing, we talked about it in late 2019. It seemed like everybody took some sort of update and people got really aggressive. And then we saw what happened with the thing when it rolled out. And it made me realize that not only do I need to get out of that system as much as possible, even if all this stuff goes away and no masks and all that, I'm not going back to work for a restaurant manager and just, it's so demeaning. I can't do it. I can barely even talk to these people, Dave. And I don't want to sound like, hey, I'm here and I think we should divide from them, or we should not talk to people that got the thing stuck in their arm. I'm not saying that at all. But I really don't enjoy being around people that are asleep anymore at all. It's not my thing. And
can I just quickly tell you? Yeah, can I just say I had to spend. We spent 2 weeks in France with a guy who wore a nappy when you went to the shop just the other day, which is now a month since they did away with that. He is such a normie. It was so disempowering for me. It's so disempowering. That's why I can't even create content when I'm so disempowered. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Carry on. Yeah, the normie thing. Well, actually, I was saying to Martin last night, Vika, I was saying, we got to try and get on with the neighbors. Today, I'm thinking to myself, shit, man, I know how hard that is, man, because they're sold out. They're sold out, and they're not here anymore.
They're all in, and dude, this is my. Okay, so for me, I have to put myself now. Remember we talked about focusing on ourselves a bit. I got to focus on my own mental. My own mental is telling me I can't fake the funk. I can't be around people and have stupid conversations. I don't want to hear about their news. When they talk their sports stuff or whatever, it doesn't bother me too much. I'm not really getting engaged in it. But when they're talking about their news and their politics and all that, I mean, I just cannot be around that at all. I can't be around a bunch of TVs. I was working in a restaurant / bar / hotel. It was all inclusive in one. And when the bar section is just walking by the TVs, it irks me out, dude. I don't like it. I don't want to be around it, you know? So
And this guy had the TV on 24 hours a day where I was staying, man. We couldn't stay in the house at all. We had to be outside near the pool, hard life. But yeah, I'm totally getting that, you know. Some people call it the bifurcation. Have you heard of that term, the bifurcation?
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody sent me a message on Telegram today and used that term about this exact situation. I said, I don't even know what that word means. And she told me, I mean, talk about a synchronicity, Dave. I just learned what that word meant like a couple hours ago before the show. I swear to God, dude. But yeah, it is the great separation, whether people want to think that's like biblically or it's just induced by fear, porn, and control or whatever it is. It's going down. We're not going to save everybody. And of course, we're not going to give up trying, but you really got to shift a lot onto your own life. Now, I lived in the same city for 42 years. I'm 44 now. I'll be 45 soon. For 42 years, I lived in the same city my whole life. And when the world went crazy, I went to California to show that this was nonsense. Did a bunch of videos with Steffi out there, multiple trips. But the first trip was at the end of April. Okay. And then when I came back, you know, man, this place was out of control. And Karen offered for me to come down here. She said, why don't you just move down here? And I said, okay. I packed my shit, and within weeks I was gone. By June, I was down here in the Carolinas, and now I'm out of the city. And I do have some good friends up there, and I do have a couple people that are really awake. But for the most part, all the people around me would be dead asleep. I see pictures of my friends masking up their kids. Even last Christmas, just a few months ago, they're outside by a Christmas tree in New York or something, and all the kids have masks on, and I'm just like, oh my God. And so I had to leave. Like I took a phone call when I was at one of my first few trips out at in California at Steffi's house, and my friend called me. I almost said his name. I don't want to do that. And he's like, hey, how you doing? Because I gotta say, man, I'm not the best at reaching out and calling people. I'm just not. And he's good at that, and I appreciate my friends like that, even though they're not want to look into truth or anything. I appreciate good friends, right? But he would reach out and he would say, hey, I just want to see how you're doing. And then right after he says that, with his next breath, he's like, but we can't talk about the mask. I said, what do you mean? He's like, well, you know, I know how you feel about it, and I got to keep my kids safe and this and that. And that's like, he starts the conversation, a grown man talking to me during what's going on. This is how he starts his conversation with one of his best friends. And I didn't hammer on him for it. He can see what I say on my Facebook and all that. And he didn't want to talk about it clearly. But this just reassured me that I made the right move, because what am I going to do? Go and hang out with my friends, and then what are they going to be wearing masks in the house? I mean, I know that my uncle, when I left and I moved out of my cousin's house and came to Karen's in June, come the Christmas of 2020, he plays Santa Claus every year. You know, he came Santa Claus with a face mask and had the kids sitting on his lap.
No ways, man.
And I would have been in that house if I didn't move. Like, I couldn't do it. And I was just, Dave, I was for a couple of years. I was just in my room all the time, never doing anything, just doing my streams, basically sitting on the end of my bed, pretty kind of miserable. You know, now I'm like out all the time. And I've never traveled so much in my life, you know. I mean, I took 8 trips to California, trip to Florida for 2 weeks, Myrtle Beach. Like, I'm just getting out, and there's a whole bunch of flat earthers around here. You know, so many people have been moving to this area, not so much so close to our town, but, you know, I can throw a meetup in Charlotte like I have a couple times. And obviously we have the event every fall that Karen puts on. And by the way, this will be the 4th event that she's thrown, where there'll be over 400 people with no mask during COVID, all under one roof.
Are you guys still under all those regs in some of those regulations in the UK, in USA, in America?
No, nobody's pushing anything anywhere right now.
Okay. So you can go to
I
like
don't
a
know.
venue without
I
a
don't know
mask
about.
on.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some concerts and stuff that are pushing vaccines. But as far as like going in any stores, I think you're okay in medical buildings now. I know here it's always been a little more relaxed. So a few months ago, I needed to go in a couple doctors' offices, and I didn't, I don't do that, and nobody gave me a problem.
Cool, man. Well, obviously I've also had that same sense of rage, anger, frustration at people's actions during this last period. And the best I can say is, we have to be compassionate for these people because they are so lost. And that, like that dad, he just wants to do what he believes is the best. And I'm going to normalize the mask by putting it on in my Santa suit and so on. It turns my stomach. But, we did far worse things to ourselves during this last period of time.
And this is a guy that, and I love my uncle too, but he absolutely hates the idea of questioning anything. Like he won't question, and he hates the idea, almost gets offended. You know how these people are. They get offended if you try to get them to think about anything. It could be something simple. They get offended. This is my biggest deal with COVID, which made me realize this is much worse than with 9/11 or even something like flat Earth or the Mandela effect, right? Like I can totally understand how flat Earth or the Mandela effect doesn't come onto somebody's radar until they start digging into things, right? Like I think we can all understand that, right?
Yeah.
But how do people go out and not see the inconsistencies of the last couple of years and not question things? Like this isn't their everyday life. Everywhere they go, they tell you, oh, you got to wear a mask to go to the restaurant, but when you get to the table, you can take it down. Or we got this table blocked off behind you, but not the one to the side of you because, 6 feet. All of this dumb stuff, dude. Like, we're gonna limit the hours you can shop in the store, and we're gonna close one of the entrances. So you got more people coming in a short amount of time, all bottlenecking through one entrance. I mean, it's unbelievable. And they even had Black Friday shopping. There's supposedly a pandemic.
Yeah. Your camera's on mute, just by the way. You probably know that. But
Just for a minute. Yeah, just for a minute.
Okay. That's all
Just for a
good.
minute.
So what about the elbow thing, man? The elbow thing means your face has to get closer than if you're shaking hands normally.
Yeah. Do you remember when they first started it? I mean, me and Karen did a live stream when they came out. Neil deGrasse and Bill Nye come out, and they're doing the elbow bump with each other and telling it. It's like, dude, it's always the same shills too, That's why I don't get how people can't see that all these things are tied together. It's like they have the same shills come out for all of it. Neil deGrasse, Brian Cox, Elon Musk, I mean, who came out first with the thing? Well, Tom Hanks was the first one sick, and Neil deGrasse was like the first one giving interviews. Shocker, dude. Shocker. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And in the UK, we had I think Boris got it and Charles, the Prince Charles, got it in the very sort of earlier stages, just really to drive home. It's a real thing, and it's really out there, and it's affecting everybody, even these people. But they can have a Christmas party, because they had a Christmas party that year, by the way, in the UK government. Had a Christmas party at Downing Street, apparently, while they were telling everybody else to stay at home. And just like JJ George said, I don't know if he or she has heard me say this, but I've said it many times that, if you've ever dropped your guts in the lift, you know how quickly that smell goes around the entire lift, and that's through your underpants, man, and your trousers. If that can get out of there, that stink can get out of there, then definitely this little nanoparticle thing that they call CV19 can get out. And
can I just say 2 words? Child abuse. Straight up child abuse. What I saw out in California, out in the heat. Granted, a lot of time I was at the beach, and it was, there's a nice little breeze, but it's, 90 degrees, or even in hotter parts in the valley, 100 degrees, 110 degrees, people masking up their kids, dude, like everywhere. It's disgusting, dude.
What was the age limit there? Because it was in the UK, 12, I think it was, and in South Africa it was 5.
Yeah, it was like 4. They were telling people if your child's 4 or over, you should be masking them up. I think it was maybe even 2. It got really low. I think it might have even been 2, dude. And these people that want to push that this is real, throw their fucking thing on the ground, and they're all over the ground everywhere. So you think this is real, and are you trying to murder me? What are you doing? Who's the a-hole here? Like, what are you doing? You're throwing this biohazard on the ground?
Not only that, these people are they're super detectives, because you'll see them sometimes going around with it like this, because they know that they're in a safe area, so they'll put it under their chin for a while, and then they'll go, oh no, now's the moment. I can detect it in the air now. I'm going to put it on. fucking hell, you know.
There was one place we went to. Me and Karen went to one place. So around here, I haven't had any trouble except for one time, and this was like 2 years ago. You know, me and Karen went to go get Japanese food around here somewhere, and this Japanese guy. So we got seated. They didn't want to bring us in. I talked them into it, right? So they got the temperature gun out. They got their chemicals out. I said, no, we're not doing any of that. We're just here to eat. We're not sick, you know? So they ended up seating us down. And even to the point where I got to order my drink, right? So I order my drink. My Pepsi's on the table. We're about to order our food. And the guy from the back comes running out, like yelling some shit at us. And he's like throwing us out because we're not going to put a mask on. Meanwhile, the guy that's making the sushi doesn't have a mask on. We're like, your chef doesn't have a mask on. We're not putting masks on. We're not sick. And, you know, so me and Karen were telling them this. They threw us out. And on my way out, you know, I'm in the doorway. I get the camera. This is all on video. So I get the camera going, right? Of course, it's on my Odyssey channel because YouTube deleted it. But I got my camera going. And the guy comes out. And the other guy, he comes out and he's like, hey. He starts trying to film me. He's like, I'm going to put you on Facebook. Everybody going to see. I said, you're going to be on YouTube where a lot more people are going to see. And then the girl starts yelling at me and she has her mask down, right? I said, What are you doing? Are you trying to kill me right now? They have no sense, dude. No logic, dude. Literally, Dave, ghost town everywhere. Now that makes sense for the first few months of COVID because nobody's working and everything shut down. It should be a ghost town. Would make sense. But there's also no ambulances. For like a year and a half, dude, I didn't hear any ambulances other than when they were staging it in New York at 7 p.m. and people were banging pots and pans over in, I think that was where you were, right?
Yeah, same, pots and pans banging, and true about that. And we went around to a few hospitals nearby and they looked very close, very empty. But I just wanted, now you mentioned that story about in the restaurant with you and Karen. We were in South Africa last year, as you know, staying in different places. And one for a period of time, we stayed in a hotel that was right near the beachfront, and they had very strict nappy. South Africa was extremely strict, much stricter than the UK. And in this hotel, to get from the lobby, the door of the lobby to the lift, you were meant to wear the nappy, and in the lift and so on. Now, I didn't do that, but on one morning, right, I dash out at about 6 a.m. There's no one around. It's about sunrise. No one around. I dash out, and there's a security guard. They normally have a security guard there. Normally they're African guys, and I've made friends with them, and they're cool. They understand this white man doesn't do the mask thing, right? This white security guard, he sees me. He's standing outside of the hotel, at the door there, not wearing a mask. And he says to me as I walk out, you are not coming back into this hotel unless you're wearing a mask. So what ensues is an argument where I was 5-6 steps down this on my way out by the time this conversation had started. So I end up walking right back towards him, and I'm standing there in front of him and saying, you know, fuck you, man, kind of thing. And he pulls out his nightstick on me. He's got a baton. I'm at a hotel, and I'm saying I don't want to wear the mask, and he's got a baton out. His manager was standing nearby, who in the lobby was like, John, stand down. And every time I came, well, that was we had one more night in our place and never went back. But that was, you know, I was doing that stuff with the homeless people, and it was really close to where they were, and it was a really convenient hotel from that point of view. But we never went back after that incident. It turns people crazy, you know, how you know, I've got an aunt and uncle who won't let us come visit them, who wouldn't let us come visit. My daughter, we couldn't, when we came back from Portugal in 2021, the family that she was staying with wouldn't let her see us for 2 weeks because of the so-called quarantine. And we couldn't get back from South Africa, you know, for months and months and months, because we would have had to go into a hotel for 10 days, a quarantine hotel. So, no, the world's been turned upside down, and it's almost beyond our reckoning as to how much it's mashed it all up, and maybe how far people have been taken away in this bifurcation, in this separation. It's like, are you entrenching yourself in this belief, in this hanging on to this authority, this dreadful authority, or are you okay, I'm going to start unplugging, which is kind of what I'm doing, and I guess what you've been doing as well, is unplugging from it in whichever ways that I can, that are feasible for a guy like myself and a guy like yourself. I think that's really what these things, these events, these moments are meant to give us, because we could cry into our beer all day long about how humanity is just not seeing it. And I know a lot of people have woken up, but the vast majority is still sucking on the cola, on the candy.
Yeah, and man, there's just so much with what's happened. I mean, there's such a disconnect with what people observe, and this goes back to the earliest of lies. I mean, it goes back to the globe and all this. They've trained you, right? And people sometimes say, why the lie, right? Like, why the lie about where we live, right? And there's a lot of valid answers, right? And I was kind of rethinking this again, like more recently, and I think the biggest one for me is like, so they tell you that, the earth's spinning, you can't feel it. It looks like the moon and the sun are moving above, but, that's not what's going on. And all this stuff against your senses. You're literally taught to totally believe anything you're told by authority that completely contradicts your senses when it comes to anything. So the globe has prepped you for 9/11 and especially for something like COVID, because you've already been trained that, okay, this doesn't make any sense at all, but hey, this is what I'm told, to the point now where the screen completely dominates people's reality. I mean, I was in one convenience store near the beginning of this, and the guy is like, he had the plastic everywhere, the gloves on, in a variety store, convenience store. He's got, they hang the plastic now. And And I said to him, I forget exactly what I said to him because it's been so long, but I'm like, what's up with all this? When this really, I don't see anything going on. Do you know anybody that's sick? He said, oh no, I don't know anybody. I said, how about anybody that anybody that that knows somebody that's really sick right now? No. And then he said, but it's so bad in New York and in LA. And he's got the TV on behind him. I said, I came back from LA. I said, you know what I found out when I went to LA? And I told him the story. I'll tell you now. The first trip out there, end of April, okay, they was in this hospital called Los Robos Hospital in Thousand Oaks, California, near LA. It's not LA. They said it was overflowing. The ER's overflowing, all the COVID people, right? So me and Steffi went and we roll up and I start filming. Now I'm expecting, because I already know, because I had already at this point, right when this started in March, I was filming inside doctors, urgent cares. Like I already knew that this was nonsense, and I already done some videos on it. But come this trip, now I'm out there, we're near Los Angeles, and this hospital is overflowing. So I'm filming as we're rolling up in the car, that I'm going to film an empty ER, right? That's what I'm expecting. You know what I actually filmed? I filmed an empty ER, but then all of a sudden, 18 or 19 different doctors and nurses all came outside to walk across the driveway, to stand on a plot of grass, hold signs that they were heroes, and do like a 15-minute photo op as I sat there and I fucking filmed it all. Wow. This is in the height of the middle of the pandemic, the second month in, and they got to close everything and they got to turn you away all your, cause I was supposed to have a surgery myself that I still need, that I'm hopefully getting soon, that got canceled because they canceled the elective surgeries. And I'm watching all this go down and I'm like, wow. So there's a pandemic going on. You got 19 people on break? Dude, I mean, they were out there literally holding signs that says that they were heroes. That's what they were literally doing. And I'm just like, I can't even believe I'm filming this right now. Like, this just happened to roll out right as I got there, so I could show people this. And everywhere I went, it was more of the same, more of the same. Nothing going on.
We were in Jason Disreed camper van at the time and staying in Norfolk. And the lady we were staying with, a South African flat earther, she, her friend was a nurse in the local hospital, and she said, all we're doing is cleaning at the moment because we've got no work to do. So we're just cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, it's fine, dude. It's fine. And everybody in the food service, like the restaurants and bars, they all got really aggressive, really rude. And I had an experience like you. We were chased through a hotel over there because they tried to temperature scan us. I literally, Dave, I wasn't going to stay in their hotel. I was literally using it was in a section of it was a corner section. I forget which beach, maybe Santa Barbara, a corner section of a strip. So cutting through this big hotel's lobby saved us all of this. Oh, they freaked the fuck out. They were chasing us. And one place I went, though, even before that, it was now I hadn't been introduced to the temperature scanners yet. I hadn't seen them in person, but I heard of them, right?
Yeah.
So there's a host stand at this bar. We walk up and we wanted to get seated, and the guy's like, okay, let me just go clean off your table or something, right? He walks back. A couple minutes later, he comes back up. And he comes up towards me, and out of nowhere, dude, he was like a Wild West cowboy. He's like this, and he's got a temperature gun going towards my head. And then I was like this, dude. I'm like Neo, dude. I'm like, yeah. And then we fucking shoot him the fuck out and bounced. And of course, we didn't let him temperature scan us. Another place tried, another Japanese restaurant out there tried, and I recorded it when I went in there. And she wanted to. They had a thing that looked like this tall pole. It was like this whole scanner that you were gonna walk through, dude, and like look at it. Like it was like some CIA type looking shit, you know, like it was like this big device, dude. And I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna sit out here and eat and order my food. We don't play that. Oh, well, how about we do the handheld one? How about no? I'm just gonna order food. I'm just gonna sit out. 99% of 90% of the time, if you stand your ground to these people, much like the people at the airport, you succeed. Now it's not 100%, but you know, you always got to try. That's my message to people. You always got to try. You got to stand up in the face of this bullshit. And people like me and you and other people that, you know, have information where we know that this type of stuff is deceit. I do feel we have a responsibility to, you know, let people to try and not let people live in fear of fabrications, you know?
Yeah. Well, you are truly a courageous man, for sure. I do admire that. But we in South Africa, because labor is quite cheap, all the shops, certainly all the supermarkets, employed a member of staff to stand there and spray everybody on their way in. You know, they'd spray them with a gun, with the hand stuff. So everybody had to be sprayed on their way in, and we would have to explain to the staff every time, go, hey man, would you spray that on your breakfast? Would you spray that on your cereal? Because your body is drinking that right now, you know. And 9 times out of 10, they'd be cool with us not doing it. But there were people who wouldn't let us into a shop unless we did that. So is Glyph here? I just want to say hello to Glyph quickly. Hey, brother. Glyph has just had a baby child called Marley. I was going to say Bob Marley. But she is a gorgeous young thing and a flat earther, although he's still working on his wife. And Glyph is a guy who helped me with the flyers that I made in South Africa. He's helped me with my website, Love, Truth, Sovereignty. So I just want to say thank you very much to that guy, Glyph. Thanks very much for coming by. That whole thing, I mean, it's bringing back stories from what feels like a forgotten past, because it was weird. You know, we left South Africa while they were still fully kind of expecting that, although we lived in a forest for a while. But when we got on the plane, the Virgin plane, to come to England, they insisted on that we had to wear the nappy all the way to Heathrow. And then once the doors opened in Heathrow, we could take it off because we were now on UK territory and they had different rules there. I was like, that's so bullshit. Anyway, the long and short of that story is that Virgin Atlantic have barred me and my family from flying for life for not following their rules. So that's just how it goes. And not everyone, but people here may not know that I had a more populated channel a little while ago. At the end of last year, I had it stolen from me because I contradicted guidance given by the WHO. And so that was really painful for me, actually. Well, somewhat painful for me, actually, because it's taken a lot of work. I know I'm not the first one, and people have lost much bigger channels. I see you're on about 5 channels down, and you've got another channel. You just lost another. If that's right, did I see a comment that you said you just lost your main channel or something?
No, my channel's been down on 2 strikes for months. When it has 2 strikes, I make everything private to try and save it, you know, so other older videos don't get hit and I don't lose the channel. But now all 4 of my channels are on 2 strikes right now. So it's like, you know, I've really had to dance around this and go back and forth between, and I have lost channels. I lost a channel with 5,000 subscribers. I lost a channel with 3,000 subscribers, and I lost a couple that had probably 1,500 subscribers. But I haven't lost the main yet. But that's only because every time this happens, I shut it completely down, which sucks because now people can't go back into my archive of, you know, some videos that are YouTube friendly or whatever. So, When it comes back on, I'll probably make all my stuff public, but I'll be live streaming on my backups and then just put one over there. We'll make it, I guess. It's just the censorship is ridiculous. I mean, I've lost 500 videos from YouTube censorship. People don't have 500 videos. I've lost 500.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insane. I got
I have all my stuff's on Odyssey. All my stuff's on Odyssey.
All of this has the effect of exhausting. You know, it's almost like it is a war. You know, and you're using all these techniques to exhaust and to fragment, and to separate and to segment. You know, and I think one of the things I think we have to do along this way, Brian, I think we have years ahead. My friend Martin, he thinks we don't have time. The South African flat earthers, I had a flat earth festival within last year. It typically seemed to feel like there was we were on the imminent this year, a plasma apocalypse. I think we have a long time to go. Whatever's coming, I don't like to think. I'm willing to accept that it could all change tomorrow, but my sense is that because I used to say it's all going to end soon. It's all going to end soon. Well, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just they keep fucking with us and Mandela affecting us. I'm not saying that there isn't a reduction in the population. All of a sudden you lose 95% of people. There's plenty of things that I think are possible, but at the same time, I think that, wow, what if we're in this game for 10 years? What if we're in this game for 20 years? Whoa,
yeah,
we've got 100. We just hit a century there. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, but what if we're in this game for 20 years or longer? I mean, I'd like to see my baby boy get to be a granddad, kind of thing. Well, I mean, obviously we won't move around for that, but so what are we doing going forward? How are we growing? How are we maturing? Because let's be honest, like if we were all messed up, if we were all misled, if we've all been kind of screwed about where we are, because that's really what flat Earth does. It's the where we are question. But then the who we are question, I know it kind of connects to Mandela effect because it speaks to the supernatural. But the who we are, I think, becomes also super important, even if we can't fully establish where we are. We know we're not flying on a globe.
Well, I believe so, and I believe that there's again, a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about right here is theory or whatever, but I do believe that we have more senses to be unlocked, and possibly, honestly, I feel some of the senses I have been heightened a bit. So I believe, they've been beating us down for years, basically convincing us out of our senses. And that's why I love the Mandela effect, because I feel that we are now okay, so the 9/11 stuff and COVID and all that teaches me, that this world is fake, not to live in fear over fabrications. And, the flat earth stuff just kind of further shows you how fake this place is, all on a physical aspect. And a lot of people talk about that because, if the earth is flat in the center of everything and the stars and everything revolve around us and all this, which I do believe, then we were created. We were put here, right? We were created, we were created by the creator with, we're meant to be special. We're not this insignificant and all this. But now with the Mandela effect, I'm seeing proof of the supernatural happening right now. Never mind, hey, this must have been what happened because this is what we have now. I'm seeing the supernatural. I'm seeing things change in an instant. To me, that's proof of creation in real time. So that's why it's so fascinating to me. And I do feel that there's a lot more that we're all going to learn. And I do feel that there's something after this place, after we're dead and in the ground, where our energy is going to go somewhere. And I do believe whatever that is, I do believe it's going to be, we're going to need to be more in tune with the supernatural before we go there. And I kind of look at the Mandela effect and the way it's kind of hit a lot of us kind of incrementally at a certain pace and not all at once over the last several years. I believe this might be kind of like a training ground to be able to recognize that.
Okay, I like that analogy. I've been thinking of it like this for a while. If you wanted to get you might have heard me say this to Martin last night, if you want to get your skipper's license, You really need to go out and be tested at sea and in different conditions at nighttime, bad weather, good weather, etc. And if any of us want to be true captains of our own ship, then we have to be going out there and being tested, you see. So this is what I like to sort of remind people, because even though I didn't choose this last few years of my life, it has really given me like you saying, you've traveled a lot more. I've traveled a lot more in the last 3 years than I have done perhaps in the last 15 years, kind of thing. So I've done a lot more in the last few years. I've been forced off the sofa, as it were, because at the end of the day, if we're going towards something higher, then we're not going to get there by being Wally and sitting on the sofa. The reference to that Disney movie.
I've been frustrated over 4 years. I've over the 4 years of making videos, and I'm kind of changing my approach now a lot. Like the people that don't, that have been so against this topic, speaking of the Mandela effect, I'm not going to worry about them really much anymore at all. I need to personally focus on the people that are willing to have the conversations and move the conversation forward. But here's the big thing. So when they lied to us about the globe, right?
Not true, Tony.
One of the first things we learned is that, they want to basically trick us out of our senses, and we should go by what we observe and what we experience, right? But now when it comes to the Mandela effect, people want you to throw away what you've observed and experienced, throw away your memory, and just say, oh, okay, I must have just been misremembering that. And just down the line, oh, this must just be a mismemory.
Yeah.
No, we have tons of evidence that this is happening. Sure, are some things, bad Mandela effects, and some things are bad 9/11 proofs, and some things are bad flat Earth proofs. Yeah, it happens. It happens everywhere. Not everybody has the best discernment that puts stuff out. But I'm sorry for the people that don't think that there's anything changing at all. You guys are really doing yourself a disservice, and you're really just being convinced out of your senses. And I think that's very dangerous. I mean, there's so many changes that have happened in this reality where it's like, I just don't get it anymore. Now, I've done a lot of videos in the last 4 years focusing on pointing out other people that are going through this, because in my opinion, every single person, just like, you can say that you live on a spinning globe in space, but that's not reality. You live on a stationary Earth, right? Well, you can say the Mandela effect isn't real, but it's affecting you. And I enjoyed showing over and over, not to pick on people. It's never to pick. I'm showing that you're experiencing what I'm experiencing. Therefore, you can't think that I'm an idiot. Hopefully your followers don't think I'm an idiot. And maybe now, because people do idol worship in the truth communities, right? There's people that work, for any channel, mine, yours, bigger channels. Of course, the bigger, the more people will be very influenced by what that content creator says. So in the last 4 years, I've been trying to point these things out to bring more people in the chats on board and have them understand the topic. And I feel I've done a great service as far as the people in the communities. And like when I first started talking about this live streams, if I would go into other topics, like say a flat earth chat, maybe 30% of the people would get this and think that, there was something to it. Now I'd say probably 70% of the people. Where I failed, and maybe I overestimated people a lot and I made a mistake, and now I am going to change direction, is thinking I was going to get people that would talk about other topics to, like I did, move and start talking about this as well, tying all these things together. Almost nobody wants to touch this topic. And you just put Tommy up on the screen. He's done some great Mandela effect videos lately. He's the person that's starting to talk about it. I thought a lot more people were going to be interested by this, and it's really frustrated me a lot. It got me down a lot. So now what I've done is, again, back to the mental, right? What I need for my mental, just like with the noise, I need to step away from the truth movement a bit, which I have over the last 2 months. Now, granted, we have 100 people here now and all that, and I'm doing my shows, but I'm not hanging out in other people's live chats anymore or anything like that. I'm just focusing on my content and the people that want to have these conversations, because you know what? A lot of people think this topic's stupid, but in reality, the reality of the situation is millions of people around the world know this is happening. Loads of people in the truth community know, and they want an outlet. They want a place where they can have these conversations because they know that they're not going crazy. And then when you start to investigate this and you look around, it's not like this small group of people that remember something the way that it never was. I mean, we're the majority. Like right now, if I went to a grocery store and I could lock the doors, right, and ask 100 random people, what the Snow White, the witch said in the mirror, you know, they would all say mirror, mirror, almost all of them. Well, it's always been magic mirror. So why does everybody in the world that doesn't know each other have all these things wrong? And then it gets down to a biblical level and all of this. Like, I mean, I walk up to pastors and preachers on the street in California on video, and I ask them, and I don't leave the people say we plant ideas in the head. No, not me. I make them fill in blanks. I don't give them multiple choice. I ask them a verse in the Bible and ask them to repeat it time and time again. 100% success rate. Hey, do you know Matthew 18:20? Where two, and they'll be like, where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst. Over and over and over and over. Everybody in the truth community, all the pastors and preachers on TV, televangelists, local pastors and preachers that people have gone to in their churches, the people I've walked up to on the street. Well, it's never been that. Now it's always been where two or three are gathered, which is a limited gathering where the presence of God isn't going to be there. And this changed just before COVID rolled out, along with other Mandela effects to do with COVID. The CDC changed, the HIPAA Act. How about this one? The HIPAA Act. In America, there's a thing called the HIPAA Act, HIPPA. And what it was to protect your health privacy. Well, that got Mandela affected. That changed. Now, when I say Mandela affected, I mean it's changed all the way back to its origin point. So HIPPA never existed. Now it's called HIPAA, and the P that's missing from the acronym is the one that stood for privacy. And what happened to your health privacy a few months later when COVID rolled out? It went out the window. It just it keeps going on and on with this stuff. Even smaller things that we notice, we're supposed to pretend that we don't observe these things. Another one that's tied to it that most people don't know. So if you were to look at a Kia automobile right now, for instance, right?
Yeah.
The A on the Kia no longer has the crossbar. It's what's called a lambda. It's a Greek letter that looks like an upside down V. Now, this goes all the way back. No matter how old your Kia is, if you have one 20 years old, you could go look, and you're going to have a lambda on there now. Now, this lambda has been popping up in all different fonts in different logos from the Mandela effect. And then what was the second variant, the first variant of COVID called? Well, the second, they called it the lambda variant. It's like we're constantly being put these lies in our face. All these agencies in the United States have changed their name. If you ask anybody in the United States, what's the DEA stand for? They're going to tell you the Drug Enforcement Agency. It's never been that in reality. If you ask anybody the most famous museum in the United States, they're going to tell you the Smithsonian Institute. It's the Smithsonian Institution now and always has been. Now, we'll get past
which I visited in Washington in 1988, so I remember it as the Washington, as the Smithsonian Institute. Yeah. So carry on.
Never been that now. Never been that now. And then it gets bigger. I mean, there's huge historical events inserted into this timeline. All the interactions between Germany and the United States are different now. Germany blew up millions of TNT. New York in 1916 now and damaged the Statue of Liberty so bad nobody's ever been to the torch. Now, I'm supposed to be this crazy Mandela guy. Why is it when I tell all these different truth channels about this, nobody's ever heard about it? Conspiracy researchers. Nobody knows about the time the Germans blew up New York and nobody's been able to go to the torch because of it. I mean, it's just endless, dude. The amount of changes are endless. The fact, like, talk about one that's media for a minute, because it is easy to reach a lot of people. Like anybody that's in America that's listening, they remember Ed McMahon. You know, if you ask them what company Ed McMahon worked for, a sweepstakes company, Publishers Clearinghouse. Now he's never worked for them. He's always worked for a different company. So people will say, oh, well, you're just mixing up the two companies. But here's the thing. For all of you that say that, where'd you get the image in your head with him and the giant check and balloons going to people's doors? Because he's never done that now in this reality. And when I say never done it, they didn't scrub the internet. Like you can go and pull out old VHS recordings that you might have with those commercials. Those commercials won't be there. Wow. There's way too much going on to deny this. I mean, it's endless, dude.
Wow. And well, let me. Okay, so I do find it fascinating, and why I think people struggle with it in the same way they struggle with that we have buildings that don't make sense and that are sub mud, underneath mud, is that the flat Earth. Okay, when we got given flat Earth in 2015, we got given it the Samuel Rowbotham version of flat Earth, which is like a stationary Earth with a sun that's 3,000 miles away, and all of this sort of thing. That it's taken a lot of flat earthers years just to get to the idea that the sun isn't a physical object, that there isn't a single point that you and I are both looking at. So for me, I moved into electromagnetic universe some years ago, and that this whole idea that everything is hard and physical and so on, it kind of melted away. And so in that electromagnetic world, it's possible to change the ether, not to snow or rain, but to sand. You could actually have sand fall out of the sky if you can control this place. It's just an electromagnetic thing, which is why I have no problem with Mandela, why I have no problem with the possibility that things were changed, but people cannot remember it because they were men in black. They just no, we don't remember it like that, or it's changed.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. It's like the people that say this isn't happening. It's not like they say, "Well, I don't remember that. I don't remember this." Like down the line, like I can ask them to these questions and have them fill in these blanks. Right? They have the same memory as us too. They want to just throw that all away, dude. Like all of it down the line, like hundreds of changes that I know affect them. It's quite disturbing. Now, again, I know that like I said, I'm changing my focus. I'm not going to focus on those type of people anymore. And we're going full speed ahead on this topic on my channel. That's what we're going to continue to do.
Good. Well, you must follow your heart, brother. You got to follow your heart. Whoa, that's a really nice background you got there, man. I'd love to come for a walk in your forest, if that's how good it looks. Yeah. No. Oh, good. Well, no, I mean, so.
You were talking about the flat Earth for a minute. Here's what I think happened, right? And this will trigger people, but I've been saying this since day one. A lot of people got so okay. So before we get into it, the globe is completely fake. I mean, I don't know what this place is, though. I don't claim to know past what we can measure and observe. Like I know that if you measure over large bodies of water, it's flat. I mean, could it be not flat at further points than we can get to? Sure, but I don't know that. I don't see any evidence of that anywhere. I know the Earth's not spinning under me because I've taken planes back and forth, same flight times both ways, and all airplanes are one of my biggest reasons why we can't live on a spinning ball, right? But what has happened is though there's been so much back and forth between flat earthers and globies over the physical attributes of this place. I think a lot of them have boxed themselves in to this place. All has to be what's physical, what can be measured, and you can't measure the supernatural. I'm sorry, you can't do it. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like the Mandela effect because they feel, well, it's hard to prove. It's hard to It's like a different type of research. It's like, oh, well, things can change, and why do we look at it and all this? Well, sorry, you got to step your game up. It doesn't fall into everything else. All that other stuff, for me, you can put it all in one basket. The globe, 9/11, JFK, all these things. It's all deceptions, all physical deceptions.
Well, and the globe is and the globe to flat Earth was very much still a material transaction. We were still doing it with atoms and with all the things that came with the previous globe thing, which is like, no, that's all bullshit. It's none of that is true. And so yes, this place appears to me from everywhere I'm at to be an electromagnetic structure that we're interpreting, but then it comes back to the question as to then what are we, man? What are we and who are we? And if we cannot alter Shawshank prison, then we have to make our own way out of the prison. And
exactly. And what
in the same way as Tim Robbins, he didn't try. He held himself away from some of the prisoners. He didn't really want to be too pally, but he also didn't go around shouting to them, going, "Hey, I'm going to find a way out. I'm going to find a way out." So he was very clever, and I think there's some clues there for us as well about that. But I think there's a way.
What if? Okay, so there's all different theories on what causes the Mandela effect. Nobody knows. Anybody that claims to have all the answers is out of their mind. I tend to believe a lot of it is signs from. Let's talk about theories for a minute, right? I tend to think a lot of it is like signs from the creator, changing things. Like I told you, pointing out some of these deceptions and maybe showing us in general how fake and how much more there is than this physical world. And let's be honest, like, in my opinion, we're on God's green earth and it's beautiful and plenty of resources, but people came in and hijacked everything, told us there's too many people, they charge us for the water, they charge us for the power, they lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie. Now, what if some of the changes, or a part of it, is our consciousness causing it? And what if we haven't realized that potential yet because we're not experimenting with that? We're not, and that's why I think we need to definitely have these conversations and see where this takes us. What if the elite that run this place know the power of manifestation that we have? What if they're not all human at the top? We don't know what they are. What if they don't have the power that we have? They're tricking everybody into manifesting this shit fucking reality with everything they put through the screen. And what if we can harness all that? That's where I'm trying to take the conversation, it's great to know that we're lied to about everything. And it's great to know that everything NASA puts out is fake. And it is fantastic to know that we are still and we're the center of the universe. But come on, man, there's so many people that say that they know this supernatural realm, but when it comes time to start addressing it, completely shut down. They act like it doesn't exist. And again, well, they all know that Mr. Rogers saying it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. They could say it's not a Mandela, there's no Mandela effect, but we're all laughing at you guys. And we love you guys. I'm trying to wake people up and show them how special they are. And I do believe that we have some power of like a collective consciousness. And I also believe that, and I've said this for many years, like, look what I talked about with 9/11 and these other things and the fake fear that they try and get you to push, right? And, same thing with chemtrails. I'm not saying chemtrails are good for you. I've always thought there was an ulterior motive. Now, most people in the beginning, they'll tell you they're here to kill you, slow kill you. And then you start to look into some of these other topics. Okay, they're probably here to mask the sky. I agree with that. Hide celestial events, things like this, block out the sun at certain times. I agree with that. But what if what they're spraying and the particulates they're putting in the air is to interfere with our collective consciousness and break that connection to each other, break that connection to the creator? That's kind of where I'm at with maybe how this realm is operating.
Love that. You know what they do with the American aircraft and military? Then the Air Force will do. They'll drop like a, what do they call it? Like a confetti. And that's not the right word, but they'll drop a bomb full of like little bits of tin, little bits of aluminum, as you guys say, and that chaff, that stuff will interfere with any enemy radar because it's going to pick up all these little flickers and won't know where the plane is. It's going to be bouncing off all over the place. So what you just suggested really resonates with me, that because we're in an electromagnetic world, and as I've suggested to people for some years, that we're like those old Dodgem cars they had at the fun fair, where it had a little probe that came off the car and touched the metal roof. It was like you may have seen this, had the same thing in America, where it got its current from the charge from the roof, right? So I think we're the same. The pineal might well be our little kind of connector to the electromagnetic system we're in, because the ether is a soup. And I think that you're never, just like a fish is never disconnected from the sea. Well, because we're in our own sea, this ether, this air, we're never disconnected from it. But you can put interference in the way. And I really like that theory. It's one that I tend to think a lot of quite a bit as an interfering thing. But not, just so to say, I don't like I've talked on these topics a bit, and they can come across a little bit like, it's more fear and more things to be. And there are some people who are still in that place where it's just another thing to be frightened of. And I don't think we should think of it in those sorts of terms. It is what it is. Try and, whatever, same with the water, try and clean your water and so on. But I think we should recognize that just like with 4G was meant to melt us and 5G was meant to melt us, that there are things in our environment that are probably not in our best interest. But the most damaging thing is the fear in your head, because the fear, it's a mental thing. That's why they call it governmental, because as you've been saying, the fear is how they control us. The fear is how they keep you in the game. So when you disinvest from the fear, you're not worried about the dust in the sky. You're not worried about the 5Gs down the thing. Yes, you're moving into the country. Yes, you're doing walks. You're doing physical work. You're cleaning your body, your lifestyle, and all these sorts of things. But you're not doing it from a point of fear. I think this is. I just offer that in there.
and to reflect back like to 9/11, right? So this is why I think the truth movement is very important to look into what I've been saying and why I think how I think the truth movement got played. So back to what I said about 9/11 being a complete media hoax, and I believe nobody was in there, nobody was died, right? And everybody else is pushing theories of thousands of people dying. Now let's be honest. So if you went to a normie right now, and you said you could gauge by some sort of conversation on how scared they were right now that Muslims were trying to kill them with bombs, airplanes, whatever, right? And then you could go to your true friends and try and gauge how scared they were that the government is trying to kill them, like straight up crushing them in buildings or blowing them up. Who's actually more scared?
Yeah.
Who's more in fear? The truthers, I think.
Yeah. This is it.
This is exactly it. Through the community, man.
You started waking up, but we're going to keep you in fear all the way through.
We're going to keep you in fear. You can think 9/11. They want you when they do a moon landing or 9/11, something that big, right? You don't think fucking 90% of people are going to buy that because there's so much nonsense. But if 70% of people buy it, and the 30% of people that they know are going to wake up to it or whatever, here we are. Here's Alex Jones. Here's Judy Wood. Here's Dmitry Kalazov and his mini nukes. Here's all these fear things. They're coming to kill you. They're going to kill you with the chemtrails. They're going to kill you with this. All these things. It's always these different rabbit trails of fear to keep you legitimizing things that are fabrications, in my opinion. And I know, a lot of people did start to see that with, the school events and everything. Finally, that the stuff was complete nonsense. Take those eyes now, go back and look at everything else. Look at 9/11. Look at JFK. Same thing. The JFK crime scene, complete joke, dude. That guy did not get his brains out in Dallas in that motorcade. And just think of the message it sends. Even the president will get a bullet if he gets out of line. So they prop him up, just like they do with Donald Trump. They make him look kind of conspiratorial or whatever. He says he's kind of against the secret societies or whatever, and then he gets a bullet. Well, that's part of the script.
Yeah. Well, and a part of the script, and also part of the traumatizing of the people, because JFK was like this bright light for the future of humanity and all that sort of thing. So it was a massive psychological, traumatic, like they lost a brother or someone who was a leader. So we've been put on it. You need a leader. Here's a fantastic leader. Now we're going to take him out. And the same is with the Diana event. Princess of Wales thing. I think that was also done to traumatize.
I don't know much about it. I was kind of little when it happened, and then I never really looked into it. It was a long time ago, right? When did that happen?
Well, Diana, that was 1997.
Okay, yeah. I was still a teenager.
You wouldn't have been that young. But first, let me, before I tell you that story quickly, the Sandy's crooked story. When that originally happened, I sent families a message saying, I just want to send you my support. I'm absolutely gutted for what's happened. And then, by the time end of 2015, I went to Andrea and I said, honey, I don't think that was real. I don't think. And she was so horrified that I was like dismissing, and this is what they do, is it's always the death. What you mean? You don't care those people died? Blah, 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 blah. So they're using emotional triggers to keep people in a state of trauma. 1 second.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, my wife is making so much noise in the kitchen. I'm like, it's impossible we could be any louder at all.
And just like they do with the children, that's what everybody does with the firefighters and the alleged jumpers on 9/11. Well, certainly the jumpers died. Certainly the first responders died. And it's like, well, everything we just talked about with the buildings and the hospitals, if the hospitals are empty and there's nothing going on and they're milling around out front, then where are the first responders? So these people wouldn't be milling around. They'd be treating them if they really died. And where's all the injured people? I mean, they're not even bringing in any legit injured people. It's just a ghost town.
Totally. No, totally, man. I mean, this they have to use emotional things. With 7/7, the British, the London one, they plastered this picture of a woman whose face had allegedly been burnt in that day, wearing this sort of ghoulish white mask, like a Burns mask kind of thing, being helped out of the station, and they played that on the paper every single day to traumatize people. But the Diana event in 97, I was living in London. I was working in the city of Westminster, in fact. I was working at Westminster City Council at that time, and my office, which was called City Hall in Victoria Street, was only 10 minutes walk from Buckingham Palace and all of that. I'm like right in the center of London as this event unfolds in 97. And so I went down to the palace. I went to Kensington Palace, took some South African friends who were visiting to see all the flowers. It was just fields of flowers, man. I saw the Queen, she came out one day to the thing. I walked down there because it was only a little way. I was totally bought into it, and I was gutted and personally affected by it because Diana was working on the landmines in Angola. There were a lot of landmines left from our war there when, we went to war in Angola, and there was a lot of landmines on the ground. And so she was working with Halo, this trust, to remove landmines. So for me, I was gutted because I thought, it's the landmine industry have taken her out because she's trying to stop the landmines and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, once you look into that one, it's so full of holes that it doesn't take long for you to go, look, this has got the same trademarks as pretty much all the other big events, all the other big hoaxes. And so it's got to be in that category, and that her sons were told, listen, she's got to go away. She's not going to die. Yeah. She's just got to go to another place, and you'll get to see her twice a year. And that's the deal.
Yep.
And actually, if I can just add something for people to chew on out of interest, if that story was of any interest to you, is that months before she dies, her best friend, who most people will know, a guy called Gianni Versace. You've heard that name, right? Versace.
Yep.
Gianni Versace gets murdered on his boat months before Diana dies. A jilted lover comes onto his boat. I haven't looked at the story for a long, long time, but a jilted lover comes onto his boat, gay lover, kills him, and then he has a funeral. But guess where he has his funeral? In Westminster Abbey, which is the same place that Diana's funeral will be conducted just a few months later. But Diana, being his best friend, gets to organize the entire funeral, invite all of their friends to her going away party. That's what I'm proposing, is that the death of him was staged because her best friend and him, they were going to the island together, but he had to go first. She would get a goodbye party. We've got a just good reason to have everyone together. This is exactly how your funeral is going to play out. You're going to see it. And then, of course, we'll pull the real thing for you in a few months' time. So that's just like a little bit of extra juice there on that one.
Wow. Yeah, good. I never really, my thing is I never really went backwards. And once because 9/11 was so big, and once I saw that for what it was, and then while I was still doing 9/11, I looked into Apollo in 2011, even though I stayed heavy in 9/11 until 2014, like 4 years. I started my Apollo and NASA journey in 2011 and looking through all this stuff. I had so much on my plate. I decided, okay, the moon landing's fake, 9/11's fake. I don't even need to go back and look at all this other stuff. So I never went back. I never did Diana, OKC, Columbine. I never went back and looked at any of that other than looking at JFK enough, which not even too much. I never went back. So it's interesting for me to hear these other stories because I don't have the research knowledge at all into those. I just saw what was up there. And now and once I hit 2010 and going forward, I just assumed it was all fake. If 9/11's fake, Apollo's fake. I mean, I'm going to
give you one that's a little bit, possibly a little bit remote for some of the American guys, but you may know this guy, a guy called Oscar Pistorius. He's known as the Blade Runner. He ran in the Olympics. He's a guy who doesn't have his lower legs below the knee, but he runs in prosthetics, and he got to compete in the able-bodied Olympics 100 meters final, or 400 meters, I forget now what his race was. But he gets to race and does relatively well. I don't think he makes the final, but he gets to the semifinals of the Olympic Games. Now, this guy, Oscar Pistorius, a year later, murders his girlfriend in a really gruesome story. I mean, like how he thinks there's a burglar, and then she's gone to the toilet. They have an ensuite bathroom, and he goes and puts 4 bullets through the door of the bathroom, killing her. Right, that's the story. And South Africa was gripped by this. This only happened less than 10 years ago. I say about 10 years ago.
I do remember hearing about this, but I don't know all the details. But I do remember hearing about this.
Yeah. So a few years ago, having kind of had just maybe the last 2 years, I thought to myself, do you know what? That story is starting to smell a little bit fishy to me. You know, I bought it and we were all hooked and we were watching. There was a trial. It was like OJ. It was a trial on TV. Beautiful girlfriend. You know, a supermodel couple, if you like. They were on South Africa's version of Vogue magazine. You know, they in the last year of her life, they were given a whole lot of publicity, and then all of a sudden, she's gone. She's taken away. This beautiful young lady, South Africa's golden boy. He's this runner who's disabled runner who's competed with the able boys. He's the golden child, and then he gets crushed in this event. And I have to say, I think that again is about creating certain forms of control and psychological breaks, and women fearing men, and the need for authority to protect us from things when they go wrong in these cases. And I also think it might have even been some kind of payback that the guy had to make for being allowed to run in the Able Olympics. But anyway, that's all I'll say on that. Just, because we could lose time on that, but so I'd add that in.
Interesting.
But, so I mean, I feel like, because I've just obviously been out. Some people may not know this, but I've just been out for a spell of activism with Jason and Harry. Johnson.
Let me chime in. You're my favorite activist on the street. Like, you're the man, dude. Like, I loved watching you on that first Globe Live tour. Like, that made me want to get out and talk to people on the street. And I think, I'm not the type of person that really stand at one spot and that type of style, but I pick my spots and walk up to people while I'm out and try and film a type of thing. We all have our strategy. Mine's not the exact same as yours, but you're like me. Like, once you get going, dude, you're passionate and you get fired up. Like, I'm like, I love this guy.
Yeah. Once it kicks off, it needs a little while for the steam to burn off there. But thanks for that. I appreciate it very much. But yeah, I had a spell of activism organized by Jason and Harry, and I wasn't blown away by either the progress of the flat Earth in general, in terms of how much activism we're doing now, how many more people we are on the street. I felt like best we had as many, similar numbers a few years ago. It's like we hadn't made any progress in that regard. And then in terms of how the men of the flat Earth have developed themselves, I'd say, well, we're still very much swimming around in the flat Earth pool without having realized that there's a lot more to flat Earth. My good friend who was on here early on, Francois Lagrange, he gave me a car in South Africa, actually. So if you didn't hear me say that last night, very kindly gave me a car. He says, flat Earth is the kill shot. And Andrew and I kind of laugh at him about that because, for us, we know that it's the starting gun. If anything, it's the key that gets you through the door to a whole new possibility of how this reality might work.
Yeah, so it's not even close to the finish line, and I've noticed that a lot of people have this finish line mentality with it, and a bit of an ego from it. And people could say I have an ego, or whatever. I don't care what you guys say, but I know that the journey goes past what I'm talking about now. Like, people say I talk about the Mandela effect too much. Well, I think it's the most phenomenal thing we've ever seen. But obviously, I come back, I talk about this. 9/11's next week. I'm going to do a whole bunch of 9/11 shows. We're talking about COVID, and we don't know. I don't know what's next for me on my radar. There's always going to be more. I mean, what happens after we die? I mean, there's all these questions that are bigger truths than we're at. So I think Mandela effect is huge. Flat Earth is huge. Obviously, these topics I think about are huge. But it's going to keep going. The journey's never ending. We're just and we'll wait to the end. No, it's going to be forever trying to uncover what this place are, what secrets it has, where we're going next. Fascinating topics, though. I do love it. I have to be honest. I got a little sick of it about 4 years ago. I got a little sick of that's my honest opinion. I got a little sick of the flat Earth topic after about 3 years, and my interest has shifted to other things now, but I always go back there. And I think that these because we're all at a different pace, we're all into different things. I do think that all these topics are super important for everybody to go down these journeys and all that. So
yeah. No, it's very important, and it's also important that these areas of exploration have pioneers, have people like what they call it, FE Core and the Globebuster guys, and people like that, APM research, people like that are stretching and pushing and looking and so on. I think that this is so important. But even for them, whether it be Bob at the Globebusters, Coalface or whatever, I'd be like, okay, it's great that you are the master of that particular sort of genre, but are you the master of yourself? Are you? And oftentimes what I found is, because I have spent time with these many flat earthers, we tend to be super like brainy or super focused or super kind of like in one area, but we're not necessarily the whole thing. And so I came up with this idea of us being like the spokes of the wheel, like the ship's wheel, for example. Well, the Jesus story talks about 12 disciples, and there's 12 zodiacal signs. And so I think that there's disciples are actually your 12 disciplines, and that each of us has these 12 disciplines that we've come here to kind of learn that. And some people's journey might be harder than others. It's fair to say that. But each of us has our own kind of ship to sail and to write. And hey, little boy, you all right? Yeah. My little boy just walked into the room. Ooh, I got to tell you, he got hit by a dog the other day in a way that is just.
Oh yeah,
man.
You showed me some of those. You showed me that a little. That must have been pretty scary.
Whoa, 40 kilograms. That's 90-pound dog. A hunting dog that's taller than him, and there's 3 of them. And he walks into this room. He runs into this room. We'd been there for a few hours, so it wasn't like I'd let him into a space where there were dogs and it wasn't unsure. We'd been there a few hours at this place, and the dogs were chilled and what have you. The owners had said, look, they can be a little bit jumpy, or they are hunting dogs and whatnot. Anyway, he's spent the last hour in a lounge. He comes running through into where we were eating, and this dog launches at him, man, and smacks him in the back like this, and kind of bit like that, but just scraped his skin, as you saw from that photo. But the bruise is the size of my palm of my hand almost, and right in the middle of his spine. So we were really grateful that all that happened was this bruising and a bit of scratching, because if that dog had caught him on his arm, his face, his stomach, then teeth would have sunk in, and there would have been tearing of flesh. So he's as good as, it happened on Friday. The bruising's really mild now, much more mild now. His movement has been unaffected all along. So I'm chuffed about that. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah. I'm just talking. Do you want to say hello quickly to Brian?
To tell you about his back.
Your back?
Yes. I can't really feel it.
You can't feel anything now. It's feeling okay. Come tell Brian that. Come see here. My friend Brian wants to know that you're okay. Come say hello to Brian. See, he can see you.
I can't feel anything.
You can't feel anything.
Oh, that's good. I'm glad you feel good now. It's scary, huh?
1 week.
It's been like 1 week. And it's a lot better now.
Your body's doing what it needs to do.
Yeah, he's healing great. He's healing great. Yeah, man. And wow.
Awesome.
These are, I mean, obviously we're doing it for ourselves, and we've got our own inner mastery to do. But, there are people around us who, you also doing it for, and I know that it's not just for me. But if I'm the best master of the ship, then my family around me are going to benefit from that. And as I've said to people, if you are, that the ship is going to hit an iceberg tonight, or rather, sorry, that there's icebergs ahead, but the sure captain is going to kind of sit there and he's going to watch and do what he needs to do. But the unsure captain is going to be frightened, and he's going to put that fear into his team, and his team are going to put that fear into the passengers, and that whole ship is going to sink because of the energy of fear and suffering. And I think my challenge has been, I'll be honest, I've had to come through so much fear in order to kind of keep doing this work, or to walk this walk and walk away from a sure salary and the comfort, if you like, of the life that I used to have. It's been a fear-inducing thing, But I guess like every ship's captain, the first time you hit a force 5 or a force 7 gale or something like that, the first time you do that, you shit yourself. By the third time, you're like, I can't handle this. I can do this, you know? And I think that's what South Africa gave me. And I think for you, you know what, your strength is you just keep, you just keep offering this information and without so much regard, and you shouldn't have much regard for what the naysayers are saying, or it's almost like if someone said to me, hey man, you're in bad condition or whatever, your fitness is poor and what have you, I'd be like, well, I know in my own heart that I'm doing the right stuff for me, so I'm good with that. I'm not going to let somebody else kind of knock me back on that. And I think because you're such an emotional guy, maybe some of the times when people are trying to knock you back on the good work that you do, you carry that as though it matters when it doesn't matter at all, because you've got to keep, and the naysayers will continue to be there. I've put out videos. I completely lost that now. I put out videos that, I'm like, people may not like it and I might not even be right on it, but if I lose myself in fretting over what they think about it, then it's going to hold me back some.
Yeah, and I do feel held back by wasting too much energy on those type of people. But we all get dragged in a little bit. But now I'm really trying to focus on screw them. And I used to, I kind of prided myself on being the bridge of trying to get all these people to connect some of these dots together. And it's time for some other people to do that too, And there are people doing that. But I'm just saying, for me, now it's to get more focused on, just like I said, focusing on myself and focusing on what I like to cover and in depth. And again, just like I heard, 9/11, no planes. You're just here to discredit the truth movement. I hear the same thing about the Mandela effect now, and that's fine. But you know what? We have loads of people that are all experiencing this. We know this is happening, and people are glad I'm one of the people carrying the torch, and I'm going to continue to do so. Just like with the media fakery, just like with the COVID fakery, when I need to go back to these things, I always will, and I'll always apply them in situations. Like when I'm out on the street, I know I don't make like a lot of flat earth videos and stuff, right? But I mean, I talk to people about this stuff a lot when I'm out. I mean, one of the first things I'll say to people to gauge where they're at before I even talk about anything else will be like, I'll just be like, so what do you think about the car in space? And it's really been a good in for some people. And when then you show them, like, wow, I mean, because some people don't even know what I'm talking when I say it. And some people do. I mean, I've seen guys with SpaceX shirts on. So I met and sit next to them at the bar and get right into it. And then before you know, I'm like, hey, we're here at the beach, and, I'll start talking about going out and looking at boats and all this stuff. And then things start to click. Or like with COVID, I do believe that, it's helped. It sucks. The whole situation sucks, but it has helped us make some other truth topics resonate with people that weren't ready to look at anything before. Because even if they're still trapped in the left, right of it, the political aspect, and it's real, but it was an overreach, and our next guy is going to come in, they at least think that there were so many lies that it's time to ask some questions about things. And a lot of those lies, they point back to science. So now we can hit them with some of these other ideas that maybe they weren't willing to look into at all before. And I did this to a doctor. I talked to a doctor in California that told me he was working in the ER, and I got into it with him about COVID. He was cool. And I really got this guy thinking, and he's like, well, I've seen them. They come in and I said, so what do you, and I think I was talking to him before they had the alleged PCR tests, because those took a few months, before they even had any testing. So anytime I would talk to doctors, like at my doctor's office too, when they wanted to turn me away, even though nobody's there because they're waiting for the COVID people, I said, so what are you going to do to differentiate between if these people have the flu or if they have this supposed COVID-19? And they just lock up, dude. They just lock up. And then, in this conversation with the doctor, I tell my story about how many, I flew out this many times with no mask and all. Well, how did you do that? Did you take like a military flight? I said, no, dude, I took like JetBlue, American, Delta, all of this stuff. And, I'm perfectly fine. And by the way, when I take these flights back and forth, you do know that everywhere I look, there's empty land everywhere. And my flight times are the same and the earth isn't spinning around me, Yeah. And then it's just an in right into these people on all these things. And the thing I love about the Mandela effect you can come in with like media changes, and you don't have to talk about geography, Bible, all this big stuff that'd be hard. You can ease them in. So I get it for like where was I? I was going to the meetup in Charlotte. I threw a meetup in Charlotte like 2 months ago, and I knew I was gonna have a couple of drinks while I was out. I left my ride at the hotel and I took an Uber over to the place. It was only a couple miles away. And I get in the Uber and I says to her, Mr. Rogers, do you know Mr. Rogers? And blah blah blah. And she just starts singing the song to me. She sings it the old way, right? The way it used to be, the way everybody knows it used to be. I didn't cue her up. She literally just started singing the song. Then I said to her, so how old are you? She told me she was 40. I'm 44. I said, so if I asked you who Ed McMahon was, I mean, what would you say? So, he was the guy that worked for Publishers Clearinghouse that went with the giant check and the yellow balloons. And people, she's telling me all this, and all that's never existed, And I just love it because I get these people with natural reactions. Yeah. And like, again, it's not even like a 50-50. Like if we were wrong and this was all misremembering, shouldn't there be more cases of people that remember it the way it actually is and the other way around? No, it's completely like this. And, Mr. Rogers is a great example because people bring up like media changes and movies and stuff, but how often have you actually seen these movies? Maybe 3 times, 4 times, maybe 10 times. Movie. We all saw Mr. Rogers every day after school for years. Like we might have seen him sing that song 1,000 times,
Yep, absolutely. And that makes it, do you think that do you think that is something that's increasing the Mandela effect? Or do you think that they're going to get bigger, the Mandela effect, and more obvious?
I do think it's increasing, and I do think they're going to get more obvious, but I do still think the people that are denying it are going to keep denying it. Like people say, well, when's it going to be? There's going to be this Mandela effect that's so big, nobody's going to be able to deny it. I say bullshit. And I think that everybody that follows me now knows that's bullshit. They'll deny the biggest of changes. It doesn't matter.
We have to steel ourselves for bifurcation in a way. In a way, we have to be willing to accept, sort of. Well, because we're set up in the truth movement to want to change the trajectory of this human story, and I don't know that that's what God or is intended, by whatever. It's almost like this is how the herd is running. You can choose to run with the herd, or you can choose to go in a different direction. And I don't. There was once upon a time I really felt crap about how that meant, even with deaths and so on. I felt crap about how that meant, but now I realize or feel that it's more like it doesn't matter. Yes, I don't want to cause anyone any harm. Love your neighbor and so on. But at the same time, whatever the story is that's unfolding, it kind of has to unfold in the way that it is. It's like you've gone to a movie, it's a shit storyline. You're like, why the fuck are all these people having to die, But it's like at the end of the story, it's going to work out okay, And that's what I like to think is that. But because one of the tricks is that for a guy like me is that I stand for the rest of my life with a cardboard sign in the street and go, it's, the end is nigh and the earth is flat. I could do that, but I don't know that that's what my story is or any of our story is meant to be. It's like, do that piece. You see, the story of Jesus is he does 3 years. I'm not trying to put symbolism in here, nor when I move my glasses. That's just my nose is sweaty, it's hot here in Spain. That's why I took my shirt off. Mine is getting really steamy in here. But, that we're so like humanly involved in this, and we feel like everybody has to come along. And I don't think that's the story. I think that you go to a football game, there's 20 players on the pitch, and there's 20,000 in the stadium. So not that's everyone has to win.
Can I interject a little theory? On like the afterlife and the big picture here? In my opinion. So I think that probably everybody here, even if we don't all agree on all the topics talked about, we agree on a few of them. I think everybody here, though, does probably believe, everybody that's watching your channel and mine, that we're not just dead in the dirt after, and there is more. I mean, I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but I think most people here believe there was some form of energy that goes on. Now, and to relate this back a little bit to all the Mandela effects, like, we talked about some big ones. We didn't really lay out a whole bunch of them, but there's also a lot of ones that people say, well, that's kind of insignificant. Who cares if the spelling of this brand of food changed or whatever? I would say, well, hold on, because there's something for everyone. Like, for instance, Nathan told the story, Nathan Sanders, the other week or so on my show, who's been trying to, wake his sister up to these types of ideas, these types of topics for many, many, many years, especially with the changes in our reality. And the freaking spelling of a diarrhea medicine, losing an M in its spelling, and her knowing that it always had 2 M's rather than 1, is what actually started her journey. So I think that all of that's important. Now, let's get a little deeper with it. So I think that this place, if you were to, and again, theory, this is speculation, but I say speculation is great when stated as such. That's how we expand, right? You have to speculate and try and put ideas out. What you're thinking, you got to see what I'm thinking. This other guy over here, a guy in the chat might have the missing piece of the puzzle, or you shoot me an email with a theory. I mean, some guy
I used to speculate there was life on Mars. if you can speculate that shit, anything's on the table, bro.
That's some wild speculation.
There's life on a light up in the sky. That's what I used to believe, and that men were walking on lights in the sky. So no, you can say anything you want about Afterlife, brother, because people think that they're traveling into like outer stellar space and no, you can definitely talk about Afterlife. Yeah, that's for sure.
I think that this place is like a choose your own adventure book created by God or the creator, whatever word you want to put. And for people that aren't familiar what that is, or real quick, when I was a child, many people are familiar with these. We had these books called Choose Your Own Adventure. You'd read through a chapter or two or whatever. When you get to the end, they would give you choices, and like 5 choices you could make in the story, which would bounce you to different places in the book. So we're making these cognitive. There's like a kind of a plan and a game plan for us, and maybe me and you, in the big picture of things, we're always meant to meet each other and have these conversations, do what we can try and help to do for humanity or for others or whatever. But we were able to make all these different choices within. These people down here with the thing on their face and all of that, right? Well, they're not, making any choices. They're completely going with the script, right? Yeah. Now, do I think that those people are doomed to like hell? I think that's fear porn. I don't think anybody's going to hell. Yeah. I do think that, like, okay, you talked about the 20 players on the football field. Yeah. This isn't even. We're not even on the football field yet. We're in the parking lot. You get it? So the football field is the next step. Okay, and like I believe that let's say like so right now the Mandela effect's my favorite topic, but there's a whole bunch of other topics I'm not seeing yet. I'm blind to maybe certain paradigms of mine that I'm still not out of, are preventing me from seeing. I got a lot to learn, just like everybody. So let's say like I'm at this point of like I'm 40% ready on a spiritual level, supernatural type of thing to get out of here. But then I die. I become 85 years old and I'm dead in the ground. Okay, maybe then I come back, right? And I repeat until that 40% gets to 70% in the next life. Well, maybe 100%, and then I get out. And all these people are trying to do the same thing, right? Now, what if when I come back, like a reincarnation, but this world is like everything is exactly the same. Maybe some of these seemingly insignificant Mandela effects are to give this reality just enough of a difference so it doesn't trigger like a deja vu in me when I come back, experience this in another body. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, no, I've got no problem with that. I think that either like there's a higher self to you that is waiting for you to finish the mission that you're on, if you like, and then if you don't get it right this time, you just keep coming back around, and in a way, it's not a bad thing, like you say, because the religion really likes to bash you with hell and sin and damnation and all this sort of stuff. But I think it's more like, the sin and the hell and so on and damnation, all of that exists in this world. Beyond this, it's all like a sort of it's not constructed in this yin and yang, black and white, good and bad kind of way. But if you haven't, I do believe what you're saying is makes sense to me, that if you sit on the sofa, then you can expect to come back around and try it again.
And listen, man, if you're just sitting on the sofa, you're going to keep. What are you learning about this journey? And are you deserving of graduating? Like, why would the creator take people tuned into the supernatural at all, to the supernatural realm or whatever the next phase is? It doesn't make any sense. You stay here to learn through those experiences. And if you're still buying, all the lies of the world and all of that, well, you're definitely going to keep coming back.
So what is the big lie? Yeah. So what is the big lie of the world, Brian? Is that we are these material beings evolved from apes, lucky to be here, a scourge on the earth, should be, Greta Thunberg off the planet, as they call it. And where that's all upside down. We are the center of creation. We are the purpose. We are the reason. And if God is an entity or a deity or a being or whatever, in that God had an intention to kind of come here, in the expression of Brian Staveley, and taste and feel and do and experience and learn and grow and do all of these things. But because of the trick that's played by God or by the devil or by greedy men or whatever, the trick that's played is that robs you of that truth. And so for me, flat earth is just that doorway to opening this idea up again of, whoa, what if it's really all centered on me? You are the hub of the wheel, and everything has to be around you, has to be aligned in order for you to have a good trip. And if you don't have a good trip, then you'll simply come back, and it's no big deal, because you've got millions of years to work it out, or thousands of incarnations to work it out, if that's what it requires. Or there's another way of seeing it, and that is that, it's a pyramid system, and we're at the very bottom of the pyramid in this material incarnation. But above you, on the next level up, there are fewer higher selves. Which means, and then of course you get eventually to the top where there's only a singularity, which means that you and I people could actually emerge from the same higher self. So if there's 9 billion people on Earth, but there's only 100 higher beings above that, then they're spawning millions of people all the time as part of that. We don't know that. We sometimes feel a kinship towards someone. It might be that we're from the same part of the pyramid kind of thing. So those are, I like that theory, by the way. Oh, Andrea wants to say something, if she may.
Yeah.
This just before she does that. This is, I don't know how well you can see that, but that's where the dog hit Alexander in the back. That's his back.
Oh wow!
There.
Yeah.
And the bruise got you couldn't see that was the first night. The bruise came out a day later or so. But Andrea's going to offer something to.
I've been listening, and obviously my path has taken me to the inner journey, and hopefully it does for everybody. And I think the trap sometimes can be that we fall into victim consciousness, where this is all being done to us, and although we can say it's not my fault, it's now our responsibility, and we have to take responsibility for ourselves, mind, body, soul, and not be in the blame game. That's what self-mastery is. Self-mastery is, I'm going to take responsibility for how I show up. And that's really, I think, our path is to be in whatever way that is. And then from there, if you're able to walk that, from there, you can offer your gift or be the light or do whatever you're called to do, because then you're doing it from a place of knowing thyself and that inner knowing and trusting of yourself. But to get there, we have to somehow stop looking outward. I heard you say earlier, you stopped being interested in what was going on and researching or whatever, because you got to a point where actually it was time to kind of rein that all in, to come back to yourself, which hopefully everybody, because the truth community can also give you endless rabbit holes.
It could be a bit of a trap as well.
It can be a bit of a trap.
Head of a ring.
And what you said about the victim thing, if you have that victim of this placed mentality, you're going to do nothing but manifest bad shit for you endlessly.
Absolutely.
And if you change your mentality, I'm not saying everything is going to be peachy keen and roses, but it's going to make a huge difference.
Well, I think also from my training, the training I'm doing is our brain is actually just mechanical, and it's a memory bank. It's there for our survival, and really where you start to know from your heart, start to act from your heart. And that takes healing, because a lot of us, most of us, have had major heartbreak. And I mean heartbreak, I mean from when we're little, you know, our experience with our caregivers, often we're left with trauma that is one of heartbreak. And so it requires going back to heal that heart so that you can then come from that place. Because otherwise you're always distinguishing the world from that place of being that hurt little child. Really, that most people are walking around in adult bodies, but they're still that little child that got hurt. And people think that childhood trauma has to be something really significant. Well, it doesn't. It can be something really, really, really insignificant that leaves a mark. And from that point in time, we see the world through those eyes. And actually, that's what gets us locked in the story in our mind. And of course, we know that in this experience, they happily have us in our minds. That's why they keep on, pushing out new stories that we, through trauma, will get trapped in. And it just keeps on going round and round and round. And our role, I think, well, part of our journey is to untangle those stories. And that takes courage, because a lot of the time underneath all of those stories is a lot of pain, is a lot of hurt, a lot of anger. When I got into my healing, I didn't realize how much rage I actually had. And I think that could be the same for a lot of people. And the beautiful thing is it's available to all of us. But yeah, if we get trapped in the outer world and in that I'm a victim and this is being done to me, and then we aren't really going to move on.
It's one of the traps of the truth community.
That's a big part of why I needed to really step away. And, I took a break in 2014. I took 3 years off of doing shows because of all the negativity and all of that, and the fear that people were pushing. So, I definitely vibe with what you're saying right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and often the triggering, that obviously you're triggering someone else, but they can trigger you. And that triggering is actually an opportunity for us to go, shit, what's going on for me? Instead of concentrating on what that person is doing to you, it's an opportunity for us to listen. It's a golden nugget of an opportunity to go, shit, there's something for me to look at that's something much deeper, because most of the time, whatever gets triggered is very old. It's hurt from a long, long time ago. And, our parents, with all the best intention, I'm not putting it all on parents, because obviously we have other things going on in our lives, but our parents are our main caregivers and our main influence. In fact, your mother is your first love affair. And, with all the best intentions, they come with their own trauma. And then that gets continued. And I think we're at a stage now where there's so many people who have been given the mantle, or they're in the people often say, I'm the only person in the family. Well, yeah, maybe you're the person that's supposed to do it differently. You're supposed to break the cycle. Who's supposed to detach from the story. And that's the role. And it's a courageous one, because our parents couldn't do it, and lots are struggling to do that. I am hopeful that actually more and more people will want to do it, who want to start taking responsibility. And I'm seeing that in terms of how people are taking care of their health, or their bodies, taking care of their minds. In other words, responsible for what they put in their minds, and responsible for how they are in relationally with other people, because we're in a human experience. We are interrelational beings, and the opportunity that relationships give us, whether that's just with someone a stranger on the street, or with someone really close to you, is that we have a chance to use that bouncing up against each other as an opportunity for growth, because that's what I think we hear. And then from there, you can offer your gift, whatever that is, whatever your passion is, whatever that is. And for everybody, that's different. And from that place too, you can do it without being attached to what anybody thinks of you, because it's your truth. You walk in.
That's a hard thing. I'm still learning that too, to really try and not worry what anybody thinks. It's one of the hurdles I'm having a hard time with still.
Well, I think it's there's layers to it. So you heal a layer, and then another, then there's a deeper layer to go. And that's why you said earlier, it doesn't stop until you die. Well, neither does the healing, because it's a constant. Oh, here's another little bit for me to heal. And it's so suppressed. We're such suppressed beings, which is why we only operate at in such a small way, which is probably why we've devolved. We've become smaller beings, because actually there's so much suppression going on. But we can't wait for someone outside of us to fix that, or to save us, to change. It has to be us. It has to be us that takes responsibility.
That's why and that's a big point I've been talking about a lot lately, this savior mentality, that we're going to wait for Jesus to come back, or we're going to wait for the next politician, or we're going to wait for this to save us, or that to save us. It's, you got to make the changes in your own life and save yourself, and I'm not, I'm not a religious person, so I'm not here to get deep into the Bible and what if it is true, what if it is false, and maybe those things are going to come to fruition. But right now, you need to work on it yourself. And also right now, and this is what I say to people too, tying back to the Mandela effect a little bit, we're seeing the supernatural in action right now. We don't need to wait for it. So, it's time to tune in.
No, and in a way, if we spend too much time trying to predict or find out what the next is going to be, then we're kind of stuck in survival, really, because that's really just us trying to figure it out, because uncertainty and not knowing is a scary place to be. We all want, the system is set up so we want certainty, hence insurance policies. Everybody has to make sure that they're going to be safe, which is really what the recent events and the recent
2020
prick was all about, was that people were feeling unsafe and wanted some security or some safety or some assurance that nothing was going to happen to them. But really, that's where the responsibility comes. I have to take care of my body and of myself, and not be in fear that I'm going to hurt anybody else, or anybody else is going to hurt me. I saw this quote yesterday. It said, if we all knew, if we all trusted our bodies and knew that it was down to terrain, all the things that happened in the last 2 years would have meant nothing.
Yeah. Because So
someone's put there the man in the mirror, and so Michael Jackson was telling us something when he was singing the song. You want to see the change, look at the man in the mirror. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's the most uncomfortable thing to look in the mirror and go, shit, how am I showing up? And I think that we all have that polarity in us. We all have that bad in us. It doesn't mean we're bad. It just means we have the capability of being that bad. And it's about taking responsibility, but also accepting that about ourselves. And then we start to see the world from a different place. We start to see each other from a different place. And that's where the change happens. So that's my penny's worth.
Well, there you go. That's an awesome penny. Thank you, darling. So I think that, this thing of, and I like what you're saying, I think that you've got to be, it's got to be that inner journey of self-mastery. This is for me, I'm speaking for myself, of course, it's self-mastery. And then I know that when I talk, and whether I'm talking to people in the street, or whether I'm having a hangout or whatever, and I'm doing what I'm doing as a family man or as just a person, I'm doing it in the best way that I can, and therefore it will have the best possible kind of benefit, because I don't think that the system will stop anytime soon. Everybody, as you were talking about saviors, everybody's looking for Trump or Jesus or some Muhammad or something to kind of be the savior for them. And I think that's been the game forevermore, and that's why they give us SpaceX, that's why they give us Artemis, because they want us to keep believing in something outside of ourselves, something higher than us, that is to be revered and to be put on a pedestal, and to give them a reason to be our master rather than us individually being self-masters. And so you having such an important voice, you see, you will just evolve. And that's what actually I've been drawn, more to you lately and to your work lately, because I feel that evolution in you, that you're moving on, that it's not just about the Mandela effect and about flat earth. It's about so much more as to who we are and what we are here, and how we are meant to present ourselves. And I don't think, as you do, I don't think it's a punishment game. I don't think, you're not doing it. But if you want the world to change, then you have to look at yourself and be the change. And that's where that's the best that we can possibly do in this situation, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Dave, do you mind if I step to the bathroom for like 2 or 3 minutes?
Cool, man. Yeah, well, we could call it a night. I've got this raging ear infection. Okay. This here is all swollen. Okay. And I got like crusty stuff forming from my ear. It's been a bit painful, but swimmer's ear it's called. I've been too much in the water lately. But yeah, I don't know if people want to kind of go on a little longer, I can, but I'm kind of.
Well, whatever you want to do. I know you did want to touch on Artemis a bit. If you want to touch on that, or do you want to just wind it down?
Yeah. You go and have a toilet break, and I'll talk to the chat for a while.
Even though I don't got a mic with me, I'll be listening. Okay, I'll be back in like 5 minutes.
Alrighty. So he's still listening, guys. Don't tell him what I said. No, I love Brian. I think I love his passion and his indefatigability. I think he's a lion in the community, and all props to him. It's nice to see you guys here. Overprotected 1-1-1-1. Tommy Tell the Truth, very busy, and Holistic Media and Gain On. Nice to see you. Right at the end of the day, Jason Starr says, all we have is ourselves and some around us that really know. I know it's a little bit of a conundrum, we do really have, we have to rely on ourselves. And if you don't know our story, the last 3 years we've been without a home, and we've had to rely on ourselves, our wits, and so on. But we've also relied on and got by because of the support of this community, particularly. I mean, it's incredible what has been offered or provided to us through this journey. And so we couldn't have done it on our own.
I don't think we're supposed to do this journey on our own.
Yeah. When two or more. Or three,
it's not supposed to be on our own.
And we've also found ourselves in situations where we're like in stuck in the middle of nowhere or a long way from, and at the moment, we're in Spain and can't really speak to anyone around us. That's very, and of course, as you might be in your community, where everybody wore the nappy last year, it's hard to be with those people now. So I think that we have to continue, doing that self-work, and in doing that self-work, be seeking to alter the situation, to change for us, your universe, because I say to people, I think that this is your universe. What you're experiencing is your universe, and we're a multiverse. We are multiverses, verse being speaking. We are, each of us, the speaking of God. We are the verse of God. God spoke the world, and this is all vibration, and we are that emanation. Vibrating is the body, which is you, but also being able to express the consciousness of God in the words that we use. That, because it's controlled by mind and body, is that can get in the way of the heart, then it's very possible to mistrain, as we all have been, the mind and the body, and then we don't deliver the verse of God. We don't speak like Jesus did, or others, Muhammad, or in the way that God intended.
I think also what we need to be reminded of is that we actually are speaking without speaking. So because we're energy, we are always arriving at a situation with our energy field, and that comes before you even say the words. So, there's that, I walked into a room and I could feel the tension. Well, that's because you're feeding the energy before anybody even has to say anything.
Yeah.
And you can kind of call it a story field. And actually our minds are really just, like I said earlier, mechanical. They are a memory bank, and all they're doing is they're recognizing a situation in the present that is very similar, or that they associate with a past experience. And then you are those emotions from that were stored, that weren't processed, because most of us don't process our emotions in its to completion, because we were never taught how. Those emotions are triggered, and they come up as an opportunity for them to be processed. But of course, we then don't want to feel that uncomfortable feeling, whether it be anger, because anger is really not acceptable in society, and it's not a comfortable feeling. The same with sadness or whatever. We all want to feel. We think that we have to feel happy all the time. That's the only feeling we can feel. But really, if we surrender into whatever's there, then and let it move, energy and emotion is just energy and motion. And it really, if you can start to see it just as an energy and let it be there, what you can be with will let you be. And actually, that's where you start to free yourself. That's freedom, really, not freedom from government, not freedom from the outside. It's the freedom from self. Our self-inflicted prison, really.
And the dome is here,
Yeah.
the freedom. This is, and our mind is what has been controlled. MK Ultra never went away. It just got rebranded.
No. God, Dave. I used to hear stories of brainwashing when I was a kid and think it was like science fiction, or maybe some select cases of the CIA did it to some people. But reality is the whole world has been completely brainwashed since birth.
The whole thing. But they call it marketing.
But we have our own blind spots and stories going on in our, that we tell ourselves, like, I'm not good enough, or, I'm going to fail at this, or I'm going to be abandoned, or I'm going to be rejected, or, there's a whole host of them. Of course, I think what happens is the outside system plays on those, because they know that we have them already, and they know that they can, that there's a feeling of unsafety. Most people are in survival. Their nervous systems are in survival. And so that they can trigger those, and that will get us to do. We want to do rather than just be with whatever that feeling is. If I feel unsafe, if I feel fear, just really feel the fear. Really feel the fear. It just wants to be felt. It's not going to kill us. It really just wants to be felt. Can I do a little plug before I leave you to
Please plug away.
I'm doing coaching, which is
Maturation.
It's called Maturation coaching. It literally is allowing the inner child to mature, but it's from an energetic point of view. Energetic being your emotional body or your mind body. And I have, as part of my training, it's been experiential, so I've had to go through the healing myself, and my husband has had to endure some of the stormy stuff while I've been experiencing it, and still do. Because like I said earlier, it's layers. There's layers to it, and there's so much programming, so much attachment, so much story that's there, both inner and outer, that it's a process. But so I've been lucky enough to be on this training, and as part of my training, I have to have practice clients.
It's really good stuff, by the way. We've obviously looked at different modalities of therapies and stuff like that. So we're not coming at this from, the sort of mainstream thinking. So yeah, I do find it very impressive.
Well, it's life-changing for me. It's been life-changing for us. And that process is ongoing. But I need practice clients. And so if anybody's interested in being a practice client, I pretty much can promise it'll be worth your while. Then email, I don't know if the email's on there, but it's trinities@gmail.com, and we can set up a call and we can chat about it. But if anybody's interested, then send us an email. Thanks.
Gmail.com, and it's free. I think you get 3 hours. The deal is that it'll be for a minimum of 3 hours, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highlight your own comment, Dave. Highlight your comment so it goes on the screen. There you go.
Whoops, that's meant to be .com, but everybody knows that. Trinities at gmail.com.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. I'll leave you.
Cool. Is that the same account we use for our PayPal?
That is the same account we use our PayPal.
We have a PayPal account, so
They kicked me off long ago.
oh, they did. They did.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
They didn't like the content.
No, once I started talking about the thing that's been going on since 2020, like right away, I got all my accounts terminated pretty soon. And I don't talk about them. Like I was just taking donations. I mean, somebody, they make the connections though,
Yeah.
They see what you're talking about.
I do appreciate, as I said earlier, the Flat Earth community has, it's obviously only some people are able to do things and some people want to, but wow, they've really helped us. And it's really, for me, I may feel the same for you, but for me, it's very much been like a test of faith, and so along this way, I've been tested and tested and tested and tested. That little boy, we've moved him to 100, maybe nearly 100 different locations in the last 3 years in order to keep, accommodation, we've had a roof over our head every night. When we left our place 3 years ago, we had 400 pounds. And no real income. So how we've got to this point, is really been the most incredible test of faith. We still don't have
We've all been greatly tested in many ways, especially in the last couple of years. But, even before with relations with family and stuff. I mean, it was very trying for me, the stuff I went through with my dad over a decade ago and stuff because of the thing in Connecticut that we addressed earlier.
It can break a man or a woman. It can break you, all of these challenges. And I really have felt at times desperately low, I feel extremely strong now, even though we haven't got our stuff together. It's more like my faith is stronger, and it's faith in, I suppose, in the creation, whatever the creator is, but then in myself as the emanation, as the man in the mirror, to create either the witch or or something beautiful, and that's what I think, that's why actually one of the things that, if anyone's watched any of my latest activism, where I am doing really loud, noisy bits into the public, I know that I'm in those encounters, I'm so in control of myself that I can, in an instant, stop what I'm doing and talk to someone in the street as though I was just asking them what the time was. And
I resonate with that totally. I feel the same way. That's what I was saying. You're like me in that way. I feel that that's like exactly how I feel too. Continue.
I have that now. I paused because there were times when I wasn't just offering this really loud thing, but where I was having a one-on-one with someone whose energy was making me contentious. I mean, I had one guy walk right up into my face and call me a neo-Nazi or something, I seem to remember, or a fascist. I can't remember. I was in Birmingham, and but there were one or two occasions where I felt myself losing my grip on my cool, and so I know that I've still got work to do on my own, like, zen of it, you know what I mean? That I've still got too much emotion invested in whether or not someone actually sees, because I can't be, and I also can't be invested in that someone thinks that I'm an idiot and that I shouldn't breed and all of these sorts of things that you sometimes hear. Like we were saying, we shouldn't, as part of our maturation, it's almost like you're standing at the gates on the fence of the Disneyland complex and you're shouting to your friends saying, hey, it's all just facadery here, man. And they don't want to hear you, and you go and you do that for an hour a day, and then you go back and you do your own stuff, you know what I mean? But you can't just stand there at the fence all day long and be upset that they're not hearing you, or they're just spitting at you and they're saying, leave Walt alone. Walt's a lovely man. Stop telling us about Walt. He's beautiful and he's coming back in a few years' time, in 2024 with Trump, I believe. But anyway, I do want to talk about Artemis, if you don't mind, briefly, because you might have looked at some of it, and it's closer to you than it is to me. I've only seen one or two articles.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it much. I did watch a little bit of Karen talking about it on a show or two. So other than that, I don't know too much about it. Now, is this the rock that, no, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a rocket that they're going to shoot that's going to circle the moon and they're going to have dummies inside it, right? Is that the story?
That's progress for you, huh?
Yeah, a lot of progress in 50, 60 years, man. I mean,
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm glad. I mean, like if you're into NASCAR or something like that, you could definitely track the progress of how how much technology they have, and how, how much you as the watcher can enjoy be in the experience, really right in the experience. And the other day in some comment, someone had said, they still haven't bothered to put a camera in the front of the nose cone, and some defender of the faith came up and said, yeah, but they couldn't put a square box. Can you imagine them putting a square box camera in front of the nose? Because he's not willing to accept that they could mold it in like they do with helmets and all that.
You couldn't just mold it in and put the lens anywhere. Like it doesn't have to be a square box. Dude.
I mean, the aircraft has got those things molded into the wings, into the pointing down on the nose.
Yeah.
It's too hot. Oh, it'd be too hot in the front there for a camera to work and all that sort of stuff. They'll come up with anything to defend that. But okay, so the launch was scrubbed. Yeah. This Artemis launch was scrubbed. Yeah. And I expected it to be scrubbed. The launch time was in a window that had 33 minutes past the hour. It was. And by the way, the little bit that I read today on it was that the engine that was causing them a problem was engine number 3 of the 4 engines. Of course. And it's funny that it's one of the problems with the engine was it's getting too cold. The engine was getting too cold before launch. It's like
on Earth, so it gets too cold on Earth, but then they go into the freezing cold out there with the same engine, and it can operate just fine.
Yeah, and it can deal with the temperatures of like the superheated rocket and what have you. But somehow the gas that they've got on there is just making it a little bit too cold because they have to cool it before launch in order to prepare it, which is of course a backstory because it's so filled with helium or whatever that it's just freezing everything that's that's metal.
And if the story is that it's going to go up and actually not just like go to the moon, it's going to circle the moon, that would mean part of it, you could say it's in extreme heat because the sun's facing it. But part of that journey, it's going to be in extreme cold as well. Like, so how does it even take off? I mean, come on.
Yeah. But what are they doing it for? Why are they, I thought NASA had sort of written itself out of the space program just a few years ago, saying it was sort of leaving it to SpaceX and Roscoff, and it didn't, blah, blah, blah. But I guess this was in the works. I just hadn't been paying attention.
I think that SpaceX and that stuff, while a lot of us maybe thought it was a fallback and NASA was going to go away. NASA's got too many people convinced they're not going anywhere. But it's a new reinvigoration for people. Oh, it's private space companies, and maybe even though I'm not an astronaut, maybe I can win the lottery and buy a fucking ticket and get on and go. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Karen B, for stopping by, and thanks to those people giving the thumbs. Well, we actually hit like 111, I noticed earlier, so I was really stoked about that because things have been a little subdued in the chat rooms. But you bring a whale into your fish tank, you're going to get lots of people come and see you, right? So it's really nice to have Brian here and have you in the chat, Miss Karen B, and I'm hoping to chat with Karen B live next week. In fact, about the same time. Yeah, about the same time. I think we're going to hit Wednesday, but I haven't actually finalized that with Karen. And I'm going to, I think, take the opportunity to try and include Andrea more in that conversation because genuinely, I think that we in the truth community are really good at some parts of it, but we're not so good at other parts of it, that people who didn't come to the truth in the same way that we could work it out. We worked it out. Andrea, I had to kind of squeeze the truth into her, to get her into kind of what we know now. But on the more the like spiritual, feminine, divine part of what some people have, like ladies particularly, I think women particularly, if they've gone through all of this, they can bring is something very valuable to how we all grow.
It's a completely different perspective from the start. The foundation's completely different, you know, from between a man and a woman, and they look at a lot of things differently, and we need that, you know, we definitely need that. I mean, obviously I love doing my shows with Karen. I love doing my shows with Steffi. Back in the day, I loved doing shows with Gloria. I love having a man and a woman on a show, like much better than just having a bunch of dudes sitting around all the time like everybody else. And there's definitely a different perspective that gets brought into it, especially when it comes to like what she was talking about earlier with the inner work and stuff. Most guys don't, you know, usually talk like that, you know.
Well, and it's hard for us to hear, actually. I think that I know that it will cost some kind of, you know, view account, because not everybody, and that's cool, you know, not everybody wants to. Absolutely. Or it's my friends, you know, Harry and Jason from, you know, John Smith Globe Lie and Jason of the Disbury, you know, I hope they don't mind me saying this, but, you know, we agree that they are not able or willing or to grasp some of the esoteric elements of what's going on here, you know, and how that impacts who and what we are. I think this is hard for some people, and that's not no foul, you know. It's like, you know, let's say you've come to the football team and you're built to play a linebacker's game, you know, that's the game that you're going to play, you know, you're built for that. Or you're a forward and you're built for that. And so I don't know that it's a competition and this is like, you know, but for me personally, by the way, it is essential that I evolve my spiritual element, you know, my manhood, my masculinity, absolutely, but my spiritual element too. And I think that as what I think perhaps with you, but this is what I think is that, you know, you have as a voice, you have the ability to kind of show other men and other people beyond simply the way that I came into truth, which was John Paul Watson or whatever his name is, and, you know, and all of these, you know, these people who are just keeping you in a perpetual story. You know, I find what you were doing with the Judy Wood stuff absolutely fascinating, and I applaud you doing that. And I think you know, like Martin, I applaud what he does. But that's like that segment of the wheel. You know, that's that quarter of the wheel that relates to some of the what we are and what, you know, all of that stuff. But there's these other segments of the wheel that we must, in order to be the balance, we must attend to. And I think this is why, so with Karen's conversation, I would very much like to try and stretch myself and Andrea, actually, because we are wanting to do more of this in terms of helping people. You know, it's like, okay, now you know the truth. You've come to accept it. You're not wanting to fight it anymore. You're kind of, okay, so how do I shape my magnet so that I am the best possible magnet in this electrical system, that I can bring in and draw in the best experience for myself, make this a heaven, and then maybe shape it for those around me. And eventually enough lights in the dark room, maybe it all switches on overnight and everyone goes, oh, yeah.
Well, I knew that all. I mean, we talked a little bit before. I mean, you know, about like how we as our collective consciousness having a big influence in this reality, and what if we knew it was, and we kind of harness that, and what if some of that is the key to actually cracking this thing, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, didn't we learn that the Illuminati card game told us that the flat earthers know something, but it wasn't the highest value card in the game, and it certainly isn't the only card in the game. And it has to be that you keep moving through. It's like there's a flat earth stall there at the beginning, and you can stay there for 10 years if you want to, but you can also keep, you know, pushing on up the hill, you know, because there's definitely a hill to climb. And flat earth is the gate, you know. So you know, for me, even also when by the time I got to you know, activism, I'd already also lost interest really in flat earth, particularly Alexander the baby had come along in 2017. Now, I wasn't really that focused on flat earth. I'd forgotten most of what I'd studied about the globe and the flat earth again. And I was looking to move on into the self-help healing modalities and blah, 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 blah. So this is where we got to. And then, of course, Flat Earth Activism in 2018 began to derail some of that and challenge some of that sort of easy, I've got my shit together, I've got a little home, and I can do health modalities and, take care of myself and get the MMS and the pine oil and all that sort of stuff, the distilled water, and clean myself up. I had time for meditation. I was working physically as a gardener, and making furniture and whatnot. So I was, it kind of came easy to me in that way at that time. But I've had all of that thrown up in there and had to be challenged. And so I'm kind of doing it again. And as I do it again, I would like to try and encourage others to do it for themselves too. That having that quiet time and that realize that, spending time realizing, whoa, what am I, and so on. And that reverence that we give out there should actually be directed in. It will go to the right place. It will be delivered. There's a postman that will deliver the message. It's not that you have to worry that, oh shit, am I talking to the right dude? Or is it a dude? These are things that we don't necessarily ever get to know. Maybe all we need to know is that the listener is within you, and you can speak to that listener and begin to find that loving, centered place. You folks may not have heard me say this before, but go.
What I've observed. We were talking about. I talked earlier about senses being kind of heightened, and I would say the one thing for me that I consider way heightened, even way more than at any other point in my journey as of recent, and what I trust now is, see, we've gone through a road of looking into all this fakery and stuff, but now it's like I'm at a point where my intuition is just like, I trust my intuition even before I have to go into looking into something. My intuition and my experiences is what I rely on more now, more than anything. And I think that's going to keep increasing.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome to hear. I really feel like I know sometimes I've not listened to my intuition and it's not worked out like, you know what I mean? Like I've let myself down in a way where I've not trusted my intuition, but I'm with you on that. And Andrea was, murmuring in agreement over there. I think that's what we're meant to become, is these intuitive beings, far more in touch with nature, for us, touch with ourselves. And that's part of why
trust in ourselves. That's what I'm so big on with the Mandela effect. It's, you really got to have trust in yourself and not not the system, So,
yeah.
And that we learn this on these other journeys too. Trust yourself, trust within yourself, trust what you've experienced. But yeah, for me, the intuition, and I think I've always had a pretty good intuition on this journey, but I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 years, it's really, because you could say, like, there's other things, like, obviously I feel I have a lot of discernment, and maybe, I'm sure I'm lacking in certain areas, but I feel discernment would be something you would always think of as like the number one thing you need. I think now it's intuition more than anything. But of course you still need the discernment, but I think intuition is number one right now.
Yeah. Intuition. I think I broke that word down. I can't remember, but obviously it's But anyway, I mean, these words like nation, for example, breaks down into nature, I on. Nation is you. Like everything is in you. All the potential good, bad, and otherwise is in each of us. And like Santos Bernardi always does that sine wave thing. Well, I think that sine wave works too. It's like a cross, really. It's like there's a sine wave that goes this way. That's the left and right that they try and pull in the politics game. I mean, you can be left and right on any subject. And then there's the sine wave that runs up and down, like the serpent up the spine. There's a sine wave that runs up and down as well, an energy that's rising all the time. And it's that energy, those two, the confluence of those two energies is the Christian cross, by the way. And the center of that is the earth, which is an anagram for the heart. And in your body, that's where it is right there in the middle where the Christian cross meets. So what this world likes to do is get you either too much in the blue, in the sheep, in the following, too much in the red, which is down below, in the goat, kind of just being like, Protestant or super egoed, or too left or too right. And I think we're all in, we all have elements of that within us. And we saw in 2020 how easily it is to pull people into very strange behavior. So we have to become masters of our own mind so that we can bring ourselves into this place of balance, the centrality, and where you're using your intuition, where you're kind of coming into a natural thing. This is where you've been given the quietness. And maybe the great thing about being in the country there with Karen is you've got quietness and stillness where you can listen to yourself. This is why I really bang on about going barefoot and being out in nature and in the forest, because you can start to listen to yourself and hear God, if you like, hear nature, hear the truth coming to you, because the truth is written on your heart. And if you're not chemicaled up, your pineal's not calcified, if you're not all messed up, if you're not all like fraught about wearing nappies and even, worried about the 5G agenda or worried about this or worried about that, if you're not fraught, then you'll start to be more intuition. You'll start to be more in.
Yeah. And like I told you lately, I've made a lot of changes. Like I'm not interested in pointing out people that, are not interested in the Mandela effect anymore. I'm going to focus on what I'm doing. I won't be around anybody that's talking politics, and I'm not going to be around people that are pushing endless rabbit trails of fear. And that's no offense on anybody in particular. We're all at different spots or whatever. And, some people want to be into that forever. I'm done looking at all the fake shit in this world, except, like I said, look how long we talked about 9/11 at the start of the show, right? Like for an hour. And I'm going to keep doing it up until the anniversary. And look what happened when COVID started. I got off of what I was doing and got back to showing people to not live in fear and all this. I'm always going to do that. And when the next big thing comes where I have to do that, I'm going to do that. But for right now, I'm going to do what makes me happy. And for me, a lot of that has been separation a little bit from the truth movement as a whole. And, not looking at all the gloom and doom stuff when, in fact, I know that some shit has happened in this world, but most of it's been complete bullshit, gloom and doom. They still haven't even shut the power grid off like I've been hearing for 12 years, right? I mean, the simplest stuff. They still haven't come and taken the guns. I'm done hearing about this fucking bullshit. Okay?
Yes.
I see Supernatural right now. I think it's phenomenal. I'm going to focus on that. And one thing we haven't talked about much with the work on yourself and all that is like, you got to have some fun in your life too. Make time to have a good time,
Yes, brother.
Being out partying all the time, but I've been on a pretty good thing of like at least trying to have a meetup every month or something so I can see some friends and have some conversations and enjoy getting back to doing what I do. And that's I think it's very important that we have for what is this experience if we're not going to have fun? What, just because now me and you know that we've been lied to about absolutely everything, including where we live and outer space and everything? Are we supposed to be gloom and doom? Like there's people that hate on me all the time because I'm gloom and doom. Well, you can't wear that this shirt right here will trigger people today. You can't wear an Under Armour shirt on the stream. Okay, well, don't comment to me on a Google platform. Like, don't tell me. It's so ridiculous. And people do get upset, like when they see me traveling, and like they think like, oh, what is this guy doing? Going to the beach? Going to the beach is like the best thing you can do for your mind and your soul. I love being near the salt water and the ocean and that type of nature. That's my thing, dude. Yeah. Like, that's what I want to do. And then when I'm there, I like to talk to people and get me in the mood to mingle about and speak with people.
Life is meant to be.
Have some fun. You have to have a little time to unwind. And it took me 10 years on my truth journey almost to learn that. Again, I got to give thanks to what happened with COVID because it really lit a fire under my ass to realize, okay, we're not fixing this. I got to do my own thing. Like I said, Karen invited me to move here. Like all these things fell in place to me. And I just seized the opportunity. And I'm really glad I did. And honestly, dude, I'm in a really happy spot right now because I'm not worried about the content anybody else is putting out. That doesn't mean there aren't great people putting out great stuff, topics I haven't got to yet. I can learn a lot off people. I'm going back to just focusing on what I'm doing, and it's working out fantastic for me. And like I said, we're going to have another Flattoberfest in less than 2 months. 400 plus people will be there again. All people that, know we've been lied to about everything and want to seek that journey further, want to talk to other people. They're not going to put a thing in their arm or a thing over their face. And they didn't during the whole thing, from 2020 and all the way forward. And, we've been
flatearthfestivals.com if anybody hasn't heard it from Karen or whatever. Flat Earth Festivals if you're looking for tickets. com.
Exactly. And even though, like I said, I'm not that interested in the topic anymore. Like, I got sick of it a couple of years ago. I got sick of 9/11 5 years ago too. But look how passionate I still am, because these are two important truths. But I can't be worried about what people want me to speak about. I'm gonna continue to when I started talking about the Mandela effect in 2018, there was a reason I said I need to make videos and talk about this, because most of the people that were talking about it, not all, there's some great people that were here before me, but most of the people that were talking about it didn't take it seriously. It was like a freaking joke. And I know how important this is. And I decided I need to put my voice on it. So that's, that's my bread and butter right now. That's what I enjoy talking about. And there's nothing negative about it. Like some people, it's scary. And those people, us that have been in it for a long time, other than people that take great offense to the Bible changes, there's real, and it's still words on a paper, right? Like that shouldn't change your life. Like you don't need to be in fear of this, and it's not miserable. Like I like I said, COVID was so big, and then we did have to go really into it and all that, show everybody. But I don't want to stay there. I don't want to stay on, COVID, and I don't want to stay on NASA. It's just not the energy I need right now,
I'm with you, brother. But now, so I think of it a little bit like this: that the truth stories from JFK, the moon landings, etc., etc. These are pit stops on the yellow brick road, And as you go along these places, you can, particularly if you're one of the first people to the JFK or the 9/11, you can really set up stall there. And in a way, it can become a bit of a trap, because you can become like the guy on that topic, and then that becomes your only area of focus. And you might have seen this in Mandela, is that I saw this with 9/11, because I found 9/11 before I found flat Earth. I took flat Earth to 9/11 truthers that I thought would immediately follow me. They'd be like, yeah, of course. But because they were so there, they could not transfer over. And same with Mandela, right? You have people who know that.
Yeah, and I'll always, I'll always talk about multiple things, whatever I feel is important. And, just like I was so into 9/11, guys, as you could probably tell if you've ever listened to me talk about it, but I was able to keep the journey going. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. And I'm going to talk about what I think is the most important. And it's funny because
so let me offer it to you like this. What if at the end of the day, we could get to a point where, we're knowledgeable about most of these subjects, so that when you meet someone and they're ready to walk down the yellow brick road, you can walk them past, you can show them these stalls along the way and keep walking with them, because you've not limited yourself at stopping at the flat earth gate or the Mandela gate or whatever, because these are gates, and you're welcome to stay your whole life there, but you're also welcome to kind of learn it, see it, know it, and then keep walking up the path. And so that guy who has already walked up that path and then has also mastered the self and so on, he's going to guide people through these truths, through these stories, to a place where they're actually making their own walk along the yellow brick road to their higher completion. But they haven't, because if I was inviting people into my 9/11 cupboard here, and I was saying, come into my cupboard of 9/11, and I'm going to keep you here for years and years and years, and we're going to, this is what we're going to do, then I would be sort of, in a way, doing the work of the game, of providing people with those attractions and distractions to keep them from going on and finding themselves.
And there's a lot of those guys. I mean, there's so many guys that they're stuck in the media fakery. They're stuck in the 9/11 game, or the rest of the news is fake and all that, and they won't cover anything else. And like they'll say things like, and they never trash me about the 9/11 stuff. They'll be like, Brian's one of the best speakers for 9/11, but then that Mandela effect stuff. Well, they said the same thing when I started talking about flat Earth. It's like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not just going to stay there, and I could stay. Imagine right now, after 12 years, if I was just doing 9/11 shows, I'd be the best speaker on 9/11. And you know what? I'd have a lot of people follow me, maybe more than I have follow me now, because a lot of people, they don't want to move past that. And the 9/11 talks are still going. But you know what? What the fuck would I be learning? How's that helping me if I'm staying in one lane forever?
Yep.
I don't want to do that. That's not a journey to me. That's a broken record. And that's me just being I'm not here to be a 9/11 expert or a flat earther or the Mandela effect man, or the no mask on the plane guy. I'm here to just keep doing what I'm doing and not accepting bullshit, and trying to figure out what this place is and where we're headed next, and whatever labels you want to throw on that. Oh, he's a 9/11 no plane, and he's a flat, whatever. I don't accept any of those labels, because for the large part in each of these communities, I disagree with a large portion of the people on some of the major points of it, right? I mean, I really do. So I don't want to be, you can't group me in. That's like politics, like left, right. Like, I don't want those labels at all, because like, oh, well, if you're a 9/11 truther, you believe this. So you're a flat earther, you believe that. No, I don't. I have vastly different views on all these topics with large portions of the communities, even though I do.
Sure. No, I enjoy your contention. I think that we do need to be like a little bit willing to not hold people too much up on pedestals and so on. But because when we realize that we are all equal, then this pedestalization of each other is something. And I've done it myself. I've put people on pedestals. So it's my own journey of
I've done it, Dave. I championed the notion before when people would put these labels on me. Yeah, I'm a no planer. Yeah, I'm a flat earther. Yeah, I'm a this. But in reality, I don't really like having any of the labels, because then people think they know what you believe without having the conversation with you. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all right, brother. I want to show you something on your shirt. When you get back on.
Yeah.
I want to tell you something. So you see, right in the middle of that Under Armour logo, you see that? Can you put your finger right where your sternum is, in the middle of that picture? There. No, down a bit. Down. Sorry, go down there. You see that gap? That gap in the electromagnetic universe. That's where we live. That logo is showing you where we live. That's hiding the truth of the electromagnetic. That's the two sections of the electromagnetic bowl, creating the third place, that little bubble in the middle, which is where we live. When I did a bit of research on it back before we lost the home, and on my old channel, I used that very same logo to demonstrate how I saw the electromagnetic universe looking. So there's a lot of interesting stuff encoded in our world, because they're trying to show us, or they're just wafting it under our noses for fun. So that Under Armour one is fascinating to me.
Can I get your opinion on some NASA fakery for at large? Just a big thought, not anything too specific, but like, I tend to believe, and a lot of people disagree. They think, it's definitely mistakes and inconsistencies because they're faking it. But in my estimation, like when you see glitches on the ISS and these obvious things, I think that's done on purpose, because like, let's say, for instance, you could take a normie and show them that there's no ambulances for a year and a half. They still believe in COVID, right? You can show a normie, green screens and wire harnesses. It doesn't matter. They're still going to make excuses and believe in NASA. Right?
I've done it.
Are those mistakes put there? And I know people talk about revelation of method. I do believe some of that goes on. I believe more of that goes on in the speech and the words that they say. But do you believe that maybe the fakery is put there for us, so people like us will come and have the conversations? They'll obviously monitor the conversations, and then they'll see where to kind of set the bar down the road to keep their hoaxes going. Because I don't think that stuff can be on accident.
Yeah,
I think that's like 9/11, the ISS. Take your pick of events.
I mean, there's obviously an element of, say, with 9/11, it is hard to cover everything up, and there's so many connections to so many things. So it's whereas with the fakery on the ISS, it does seem like it would be hard for a Disney level production team, which is what it will be, to miss that kind of thing. So I do think these things are put through on purpose, and actually it's a funny old thing, because when something really obvious, like Tim Peake doing his little flip in space, that was an important moment for me back in the day. I showed it to so many friends, because back then I still believed, like you were saying, that you could show people the harness in his trousers and go, look, man, he's doing a circus trick, right? And it actually cost me friends. because I thought I had a slam dunk proof, and so seeing them wanting to reject that information was hard for me to deal with. It's like, hey, fuck, I don't want to hang out with this guy anymore because he's being stupid with me now, and he wants to call me stupid for pointing out what looks obviously like a man in a harness. So yeah, I think it's done. So yeah, and maybe to gauge where we're at and so on. And maybe it's fair to say that sometimes errors do, like the bubbles from the helmets and so on.
Yeah,
that
I
they
mean,
happen.
I can see some continuity errors and stuff like that, but why harnesses, green screens, augmented reality glitches? How's that get past a production team of any merit? Doesn't add up to me.
Yeah, I get you on that. And is it also that there is part of that reveal deal going on that that the system needs? Because there is this very possible kind of scenario in which the people who run this game know that they have to manifest a certain level of darkness in order to bring about light. So just like COVID has created a dark thing, has created light in your life. So too has, for me, in a way. And so, I mean, actually, Alexander, our baby, he's our flat Earth baby. I mean, was it not for flat Earth, I wouldn't have chosen at 50 years old to have another child.
Wow.
But it was a choice. It was a choice. So, and that's a great thing for me. This truth has freed me in so many ways. So I feel like if the system, if God, if the game needs warriors to stand up, and I don't necessarily mean with axes and whatnot, but to stand up in spiritual, in the way that that the Christian has always talked about, like Jesus would do, to stand up and be righteous and be right, like good men. If that's what it needs, and for men to step over, to eschew, to shun those dark things of corporations and all of that sort of stuff, if that's what it takes, then it's like it has to create that darkness, to create that moment where someone's going to step out of the darkness and do an act of kindness. So the man who kind of becomes the hero for saving a woman who's being attacked needed for that girl to be attacked, for him to become the hero, you see. So, in a way, we might actually, the Freemasons and whoever runs this game, they're playing a game of chess because they know it's a dark and light game. And they're like, the more darkness we create, the more light will come from that. But we need for our light carriers to be woken up. And the only way we wake them up is to make mistakes when we pull off these events.
You don't grow in
and as Andrew just said, you don't grow in good times. It's like if I was sitting on the couch, watching the Formula One, like I was at the age of 40 or whatever, then I would be 5 belt sizes bigger, and I would be uninterested in anything spiritual. I was atheist. I would be on anything higher. My life is just a meaningless kind of here today, gone tomorrow.
Can I ask you about that atheist? Because I don't think I was ever atheist. I didn't really have a thought on it much. That's just kind of how I was. So were you like hardcore against the idea of the supernatural or a God? And what happened? Was it gradual, or like you woke up to flat Earth and then you were like, okay, creation's real, and it was like a switch? Or
yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was kind of gradual in a way, I mean, I had a lot of religion in school, which is why I was one of those people who, you might have heard me say it on my story with you, that I used to joke with the preachers that the Bible is a flat earth book, because I could read that in as a teenager. So I had quite a lot of religious indoctrination as a child. Then I went to war at 19, and it was part of the Cold War. And of course, we were in the front line of that conflict. So I saw what we humans can do to each other at first hand. And then I saw the system, the governments and all this sort of stuff just being like completely inept at changing, us going to war and believing that humans are bad, that we just go to war with each other, and that we evolved, and that we're just at the peak of evolution, but it's not all that good. It's pretty grim. We're still pretty barbaric. There's no God in that. For me, there's no creation in that. There's no divine intention in that. So I was, as I got into my late 30s, becoming increasingly entrenched in that. My mother died when I was in my early 40s in 2011, right? And I still at that point wasn't willing to accept. In fact, I was starting to read Christopher Hitchens and, people like that. And I was Lawrence Krauss and all of these science guys who had it pegged about evolution and so on. They were my heroes. I was listening to their
Lawrence Krauss is so cringy. God.
See how easily it is. I watched a debate with Richard Dawkins and a creationist, and I just was like, go on, Richard, put it to her, like just knock her down and stuff, type of thing. I was becoming entrenched in that and bitter. And my mother dying in 2011, I still wouldn't accept that. I needed to have God in my life. That was 2011. So I'd become pretty like, no, there's no God here. This humanity is a mess. There's no God. And what God would write a religious text that had people at war with each other, So that was where I was at with all of that, Brian. So I had the DMT, which was the big thing for me in the beginning of 2015. That really gave me God back. And then of course a little while later, Flat Earth put me in the center of that, and I thought that it must be the Bible after all, because I said it was Flat Earth in the Bible, and then I can continue to see that there's still control in these tools that have been handed down by man to man to man, and so I realized that the books they do tell truths about God being within you, and that the truth is written on your heart and all this sort of stuff. And so I continued to seek, and I didn't find in the religious orders or groupings or whatever like anything that resembled what this loving God or this loving sort of omnipotent, beautiful nature or Gaia or whatever some people call it, kind of thing. It's nothing like that. So why choose that? It's not the love that I knew in the DMT or the love I knew from my mother, for example. So I know that the truth is on my heart, and I know that that God walks within all of us. But it took me, I had to, and I'm glad for it, but I had to get to whatever, 44 or whatever before. So I was your age, really. I'd got to that point where I was atheistic, and I was like, no, fuck it, there's no God here. It's bullshit. And I'm glad I have that, because I'm a guy who has to speak to other atheists now. I speak to people who go, no, it's all bullshit. I was in that belief system too, which is why it's weird for me to still have to deal with Globers, because and they'll never end. The Globers will continue to come. It's like, but dude, I was there, man. I had the same everything I know, because it's all a theoretical kind of smorgasbord picture, and we've all given the same picture, and I didn't miss the study on it.
And you have an advantage when you talk to these Globies, like already that like they've never ever looked into any of it, like because they don't even know. You already know that almost all of them don't even know what they're presenting as what they think is true.
Yeah.
They've never looked, because if they've looked, they wouldn't still be a Globie.
Yeah. No. Yep. Absolutely. No. Absolutely. No. Absolutely. And so I mean, when it comes to that, I have to say, I just want to stop trying to defend a model. I don't have a model to defend. I don't want to be defending models.
Absolutely not.
My girlfriend's prettier than yours, or at least they're actually physical girlfriends. But if it's just like some avatar, no.
Yeah, for me, I know this place was created for not spinning. I know it's flat anywhere we can like observe over large bodies of water. I know that for me, my favorite proofs that it's not a spinning globe in space is everything to do with airplanes, flying them, landing them, with the ball spinning under you, curving under you. All of that is complete nonsense. I know that there's no, curvature found anywhere that anybody's been able to demonstrate. Anything after that, I don't know. I don't even like the ideas of saying that space is a vacuum. They just say space is a vacuum. We don't know what the fuck it is. You know what I mean?
No.
So, there's a lot of things that, I don't know or claim to know. I don't know what the luminaries are. You know, I have some ideas. Everybody has some ideas. You know, I don't know what's at the North Pole. I don't know what's at the South Pole. But what I do know is, as fascinating as this is, there's so much more. You know, and now that I'm seeing the supernatural, and as fascinating as the Mandela effect is, there's still so much more, and there's still so much more around me that I haven't got into. Whether it didn't resonate with me, so maybe it's not truth, which I think is a lot of the stuff that people put out, or there are great truths out there that people cover that I haven't gotten into enough yet, or I'm just scratching the surface, like common law and you know, things like this. Definitely valuable topics that I just haven't gone down that road so much yet. So we've all got tons of stuff to learn. So I don't ever want to come across as like some people think I'm too passionate, and maybe they might think I'm a know-it-all or something. Absolutely not. You know, I don't know what's causing the Mandela effect. I don't know the ultimate truth in 9/11. Or I think I have a really good idea on some of these things. I don't know though. And everybody else's opinions are just as valid when it comes to stuff like that. You know.
But Brother Brian, though, what matters is that you're growing day by day, you know, and gosh, I'm sure there's guys that are a little older than me who say, oh, I wish I'd found it younger. But, you know, it's great to be where you're at age-wise, and that you're going to, you know, you get the chance to kind of rewrite your story in a way, you know, because the sins of your father thing is the sine wave that we carry, the vibration we carry from our institutional and familial soup that we come from, and each of us carries our own unique sine wave and vibration, and I think it's a little bit like the pond where you come with is perfectly still, but your society throws little stones in from young, and it causes ripples and effects and so on, and I think perhaps our journey here is to try and stabilize that pond.
Can I say something about
bring the pond back? Oh, hang on a minute. The lady's got something to say.
The needing to know is actually a survival mechanism. The searching and the needing to know it or think we know it is a form of survival, because if we don't, what does that mean? And actually, when you get to a point of acceptance that you have an idea, like you said, of what it is, and you're comfortable with that, but what you're more comfortable with or you're more at peace with is that you don't know.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. It's a mystery. A lot of it's a mystery. We can use our senses to have a sense of what is around us, but really, if we're all honest, we don't know.
We don't know.
And when you can actually be a piece of that, that's when that pond becomes still, because it's like the brain's not trying to figure it out. Because figuring it out means we're in survival still. And when we're actually at peace, when there's a sense of nothing, then we're actually where we're meant to be. Because it's a trust. It's a trust that actually, you know, whatever it is, you know yourself. And that's a really good place to be, I think. It's when the searching stops, because I think that's part of the trap with the information age, is they want us to keep on searching because we're searching outside of ourselves for something that perhaps we'll never get the answers for, because there's a million different possibilities. But the beautiful thing about possibility is that means there's a million different possibilities for us too, and the outcome of things. But if we want to be certain about an outcome, then we're kind of saying that's how the story is, rather than leaving it open to the possibility.
Yeah. And I'm fascinated by a lot of ideas of things that I don't know, you know, like I said, I some things I know about this place or whatever. All the other ideas, like, I don't know, like, I'm fascinated by it. I want to know what's going on in the sky and things like this. It's fascinating. What a fascinating time we're going through, to realize that literally, dude, we're literally going through what we should have went through as children, learning what this place is and how it operates. We're learning this as in our 40s and 50s, and then some of us get older. Like, it's fascinating now, you know?
Well, or put it another way, we're actually unlearning what this place is.
Yeah. Trying to shake all the paradigms that we're in. Like, basically what you were just talking about is like comfort zones is a term I use for that. You know, we can't just get into our comfort zones and not get out of them, and a lot of people do that. And unfortunately, those comfort zones that they're in, a lot of them aren't really too comfortable. They're full of fear and the endless rabbit trails you spoke of earlier,
Yeah. The irony is we're in there because we feel safe, but actually it's because we feel so unsafe. So it's really a very unsafe place to be. And when we can surrender and be in the unknown and really, really surrender to the unknown, doesn't mean we're not interested in learning and sensing and getting to know ourselves and the world and nature and reconnecting and all that kind of stuff. That's the human experience. Like you said earlier, you've come here to enjoy the pleasures of this experience. But when we can truly be free to do that is when we are not searching.
Not searching. Yeah, that's
what I honestly do. But there is times, I'm telling you that, and I've spoken of this. I do feel that there's consciousness updates basically to people, and I do feel that at times, like, I've taken in information that I don't know where it's coming from, and it's things that I have looked into, and I'm saying this has happened to me a lot over like the last 3 years or so. Whatever that is, awesome. If that's God's stuff, or if that's coming from other people in the collective conscience somehow, and we're sharing information with each other, I think that could be very possible.
Yeah,
I like
or that something's being unlocked in you. If we go a little bit, and again, I don't know this. This is just a sense I have that if we're in the age of Aquarius, or which is the ether, it's the water bearer, the information bearer, and that the ether, which is why there's been so much around the breath and breathing and breath work. And if the ether is changing, if the ether is becoming more, or consciousness is waking up and is becoming more filled with information, then that's unlocking what's already in us, which is why it's an unlearning or detaching from the outside, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, that we're coming to our authenticity, to our realness, and tapping into, yes, maybe telepathy. So we're sharing stuff without even knowing it. And when somebody else unlearns something, we're able to then be part of that. But it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that I don't fully understand, but I have a sense of. And I think, the ether is perhaps there's a change going on where there's an upgrade, which is why actually there is a possibility that actually breathing in that ether is a changed experience for everybody, and there has been an upgrade going on, and perhaps some people aren't even able to take that in because their bodies are on the heavier side, misaligned. They're still got those very heavy, dense energies going on, and that's just a theory. But I have a sense that maybe which is why the breath became such a big deal.
Because we were talking to Alex Michael, conspiracy music guru, the other night. We were at his place. And we were talking about breath and ether, and the word breathe has the word ether in it. So we think that the ether and the breath and the covering of the breath last year and so on is all. And the choking. Remember the neck? I can't breathe. Remember that mantra that they got everybody?
Yeah, man. They started it right up at the same time that the George Floyd, and then they're going around with "I can't breathe" shirts on, wearing a mask. It was just so funny. I'm like, no, you can't breathe. You have a fucking mask on.
But there was some significance maybe in those. There were messages being given to us that actually there is that you want to breathe. You want to breathe in this because it is the awakening. That is what's giving us this. Upgrading consciousness. It's what's and there's the what do you call it when the words you can turn them around, and there's like they said, ether is earth and heart and earth, and there's heart. There's the sense of coming home. We're coming home to ourselves, or coming home to something that we've all been searching for, really, probably since the day we were born.
To live.
And-
And the opposite of live there, backwards is evil, isn't it? You know that. So we're meant to live. We're meant to live well.
We just
So-
want to live with joy and happiness and not fear and not all the stresses that are on us.
Ease. Hey,
I mean, is that too much to ask for? You know?
No.
Yeah. Well,
When I think, and as you probably can feel this in your own life, when you're not attached to this story that's going on in the movie that's going on outside, then you're able to have more of that ease.
instead of dis-ease.
When you don't have any worries and any fear over any scary stuff that they push from nukes to COVID to terrorists, and it's just, it is a very, very freeing experience. There's like when I can get out and enjoy myself, there's not really any stress I'm really thinking about, maybe some small things, but I don't worry about, just like you guys, you don't worry about what they're going to do to me next, or, I don't consent to any of it, and we definitely have some obstacles, and you guys, went through it a lot with your travel during COVID and everything. Definitely been some trying times, but as far as like the major things that they're going to do this to you, they're going to do that, they're going to throw you in a FEMA camp. You're not going to have any food. You're not going to have any power anywhere. I mean, this has all been bullshit. They're going to take all your guns. I mean, I can't worry about any of that stuff. And why would I, And some people might say, oh, well, I've heard people say, well, Brian's getting new agey now. Well, throw another label on me, okay? I'm the flat earth, no planer, new agey, Mandela effecty, COVID denier, whatever you want to call me. All right, good. Have at it, okay? But that's where my mental's at right now. I don't worry about any of it. I don't pay attention to the media at all. I know there's some people that still say, oh, well, I want to see what's going on, so I know what they're planning against us. And this, I won't give the media 2 minutes of my attention. I don't want to hear about none of it. I don't want to hear. I completely shut down when people try to bring it up to me, even if it's like, hey, you should look at this event. I mean, I just completely shut down. I don't have any interest in it at all. Yeah. It's a bad energy for me. I'm beyond it now.
Well, you've done your own testing, haven't you? You've tested for yourself, and having to confront it and test it, you are able to say, okay, well, I'm ready to move on from it. So it's another detachment from the system. There's the example of, when you have these ropes or tethers, and as you experience or look at something and use that discernment or experience it, or face your fear or whatever it is, you detach and you detach and you detach and detach. But you have maybe a million of those
detachments.
That you're attached to, and that's why it's a process, and it's a deep, it goes a deeper level, and the deeper you get, I think the closer you get to your truth, your own real truth, which is, I believe, that we're here having a human experience, and we have that what you're tapping into, the truth and your knowledge and all that, is spirit. It is a consciousness. It's not an artificial system, which they'd love us to be tapped into instead.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Once again, really insightful, feminine style input. Really trying to encourage me to take my game in a get, because like this is probably true for most guys. Like when I'm young, I'm 4 years old. I've got a 4-year-old, well, 5-year-old boy now. But I'm aware that he's at 2, 3, 4 years old. He's a super soft little boy, and the experiences that I put him through are going to cause him to possibly to harden his heart along the way. And so that's been my experience anyway, is that, I was a soft boy, and then I had my heart hardened along the way, life experiences, blah, blah. And so when I approach the world, I approach it from that hardened kind of way. Now, when I was just head away doing a 9-to-5 job, and sitting, having a barbecue on a weekend kind of thing, watching the Formula One, then that was going to be my expression of that. But now you come out and you start this whole journey, then you're forced to, I think, or not forced to, but it's a good idea, I think, to be able to move through that bruised broken-hearted kind of warrior, angry kind of personality that's there to one that is that loving child, or has the essence of that loving child, prior to us being disturbed. Because we're disturbed on purpose. They prick you in the foot as you come out of your mother's womb. The first thing you feel in this world is pain, actually, and that's on purpose. A shot right up the into the foot, which goes up your sciatic nerve into your groin, immediately destabilizing the most important nerve that runs obviously up in your back. That's what they do to us on purpose. So what we
and then they encourage you to butcher most boys' penis too. Right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
On that, I think that they do it at that age, particularly because it creates a psychological altar. And that psychological altar, that trauma, is then exploited later in life. I really think that. I think that you train a puppy, that you can do it for a child, where you can do things to hurt them or whatever, to alter them irrevocably in a way. So maybe that's too strong of a word to use, but I really think that we've all been altered, we've all been hurt on purpose. And so I feel like I could go out into the street any day almost, and if I was in the right language, country, English, I would be able to do what I do. But I want to do it from a place of love. I want to do it from a place, an emanation of love. So what I'm delivering is coming from a place of love, because I know for sure I was more angry in 2018 about the system.
We spoke about that. Remember your video that went viral that you were showing me, and you're like, you felt you were a little too aggressive in that, even though everybody loved it, and I think right. I think you got the right mindset here.
And that's what I think. I feel like there's some channels, there's some mindsets that are like, we're just going to keep Alex Jonesing the heck out of us. Like we're going down the boxing club every night. And I think there's a place for that. But I really think that kind of mindset is designed in so that we stay in that sort of beer swilling, kind of like aggressive, way. And I'm obviously, for myself anyway, hoping to find, a higher way.
If you're at that level all the time, you're not really having clear cognitive thoughts all the time. You can't. You're not in the right state to really process what you need to process. You're always like that, and that's where they try and get people.
Yeah, and that's the purpose of these channels, is to kind of keep us in that kind of angry at the system, rah at the system, and so on. It's like, okay, I know the system is designed to do this thing, but then is it, either it's tricking me by doing the thing, or it's holding me by me being enraged by it, you see. Mm-hmm. So, to either be compliant or protest ant, they don't mind which kind of ant you are, but you're either a protest ant or a compliant. And
my best thing you can do is don't buy into the system and stay away from it as much as possible.
Yeah, be in the world, but not of the world.
Yeah,
that's not been Mandela affected, has it? In the world, not of the world. It doesn't say now in the world, not on the world.
Well, not yet, but interesting enough, in the Lord's Prayer in the KJV, where he used to say on earth as it is in heaven, now it says in earth instead of on earth. So since you brought that up, it kind of made me
in earth as it. Yeah, I knew that one very well. Yeah, I heard you say that a little while ago. That was a clear one for me, because I said the Lord's Prayer a lot as a kid. I also said as a kid that I'm not worthy to eat from the crumbs under your table. That's what I said every Sunday at church. I am not worthy, but to eat from the crumbs under your table. Now, if that isn't demeaning of what I am.
That is so demeaning. I can't, that's why I could never do religion and be told that I'm a sinner, and no, I'm, and I know this triggers people, but I do believe that I live in my truth. I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to try and at least spark people to go on their journey, to wake up to truth, keep the journey going, not harm people, I'm going to be fine. And if people want to have a problem with that, I mean, that's you. But my take is I'm definitely going to be fine in the long run. And if anybody's going to judge me, and I'm not saying nobody's going to, if I am judged by a god or another deity or whatever, if I'm not judged in a good light after behaving like that, then I don't care what they have to say. You know, like, I'm sorry, that's where I'm at.
Well, we all know that we live in this yin and yang dialectic system. So all that this system wants you to do is to choose left or right side. And I don't think any loving God or any essence creator thing would really give a rat's backside about it. It was like, well, yeah, I created a left and right, but there was a middle way as well. And, you know, you could have chosen that one too, you know. And so that's where I'm trying to find myself, is that middle way, that little line between the yin and the yang. That's the place where I think we're meant to sort of aim for, and not be so caught up in the hoopla and the fuss of this game. But there are obviously, the reality is that there are things that we need to do. But if you're in your best creator essence, if you've been raised in a way to be in your best creator essence, then you're going to find a thing that you love doing, and you'll do that. It may mean sometimes you have to work with people whose views are very different from yours, and you can't talk about what you know. But maybe in time that will change, you know, that there will be increasing numbers of people who can share communities and so on. I know that there are some, you know, fledgling efforts for communities to flourish, and Martin Kenny's got his thing going on there in Portugal. You know, so not that I'm into communes. I think communes can rob you of self-mastery, by the way. That's from my experience now over the last few years. I think that having your own territory, your own place, is essential for every man and woman, to have your own place. But when it's somebody else's place that you're having to borrow and under their rules, then you're never going to be the master of that shit, or your own shit. And we have to, I think, strive towards that, you know, where we've grown to a place of self-mastery and not somebody else's master. And at the moment, you know, government seems to be most people's master of choice.
Oh yeah, sure. Government and false idols they prop up in the media. You know, they love their flashy suits, and their politicians as well. I mean, they love to worship these people, you know. I mean, look at over here, dude. There's people over here in the United States that get all worked up over the royal family over there. Like, it makes me sick, dude. It's like, I have people back home in Lowell that like get excited when they have these stories about these royals in the UK, and I'm like, why do you even care about these families for? Like, you know, like, God, you idolize them. It's disgusting, dude.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's the same with boys who put another man's name on their back of their shirt, you know, because they love the football or the basketball or whatever it is that they play, you know. It's kind of...
I used to be that guy. I used to be that guy, you know. That was me.
but you know, I suppose what seems to be worse about the royal family is that they may well be, you know, the head of the snake. But like that, you know, Alice going down the rabbit hole, Alice in Wonderland, you know, what does she encounter but a queen playing chess, black and white, and ordering her bishops and all of these things around to you know, have a little bit of fun, you know. And that may well be some sick part of what's going on here. But once you see it, you can go, well, there's a way out of Disneyland, and I'm just going to find my own way and quietly sort of go about my own thing. Because, you know, this new age consciousness rising and all this sort of thing, I'm all for that, but I've also got to put that into the bag of could that be the savior? You know, we're waiting for another savior. This time it's not Jesus, it's the higher consciousness that's coming through Aquarius and blah blah. Whilst I believe in this idea that the human story is a little bit like everything else in nature, it has a summer and a winter, it has an autumn and a spring, so it has high periods and low periods, dark periods and light periods. So I think I think that's probably going on. Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe the consciousness is going to be higher for a group of people, a small group of us, but it's not going to be this higher consciousness of the whole earth, like, because they haven't proven they're even ready to start that journey, most of the people. You
I
know,
see it
so
like this. Yeah, I see it like this. Sorry,
there's
Brian.
only 20. I'm sorry, just it's the realization there's only 20 people are going to be on the football field and 20,000 in the stands, like you said, right?
Yeah, another way of thinking of that idea is that, you know, in the springtime or as the winter's receding, then if you look into the field, you'll only see like 3 or 4 blossoms pop their head up. And then for a few weeks, you know, not a lot else is happening. And then it's only much later on as the spring really warms up that the whole field, you know, bit by bit starts to come into color. And then it's only late in spring when the whole field is now emerged. So, you know, it may be the same with the consciousness thing. I mean, I don't want to claim that I'm some sort of early bud, because I don't know how far up the yellow brick road I've still got to go, you know, for my bud to kind of shine, if you like. But I do think that it must be like that in nature. You see that things start little bit by little bit, and then eventually the avalanche will occur, and then it'll be a flood of epic proportions. And hopefully it's a flood in the ether, a flood of the consciousness, a flood of the, you know, the rising of consciousness. Anyway,
So
we're,
well, I'm getting pretty hungry. You want to start to wrap it up?
I'm with you, brother. 3.5 hours is I'm so rusty at all of this. This is just like a warm-up for you. You're probably just going to go and have a jog now, do another 5 hours later on.
I'm gonna have lunch, and no, I'm not gonna do another show today. Maybe tomorrow.
Well, guess what? I'm having dinner over here with the Conspiracy Music Guru tomorrow night, and Stellium 7, the Mammoth Rock Man, and one of my activist friends, Howard George Stirrup. So that's a pretty epic night for me. And then on Friday, I'm seeing Mark Sargent. I got a date with Mark Sargent.
Awesome.
So I'm just going to have a chinwag with him too. And then, as I said, I have Karen hopefully next week, and there was someone else. David Weiss. I'll see if I can rope him in actually as well, just a chinwag. You know, the American flat earthers, you know, guys like you have been very supportive of what we've done in activism space. And so I really appreciate that, and I wanted to mark that. And as I say, I think you know, it's great to have a flat Earth jamboree, and it's great for us to be pushing the boundaries of what we know and so on. But I also want to just keep reminding people not to get lost in the theater. There's so much we will never know. But what about you, my friend? What would you like to wrap up with? You got 2 minutes.
Not much. Just if any of the things I said to you, anybody listening, is polarizing. If you've never really dug into 9/11 media fakery and the idea that it might have been a hoax, try to use the eyes you had now after seeing COVID. Go back, look into it. If you've ever thought the Mandela effect is about just logos and brands and all that, no, please have a deeper look. It's not what's presented in the media. I know it looks like, oh, it's being covered in the media, so it must not be a real thing. No, it's being minimalized in the media, gatekept, just like any other topic they would need to cover in the media. They don't even tell you that we have loads of physical evidence for every change that we talk about. They don't tell you that we've seen things change and change back, incremental changes. This is not about false memory. This is about the supernatural presenting itself in its realm. I will have a 9/11 special coming up. I'm going to go. I just been going in depth the other day. I'm going to on Saturday the 10th. Me and Christian Knapp are going to do a full-on 9/11 show, and you guys will see me upload stuff before then. And I am down on all my YouTube channels right now, so just I left the link in the chat. If you guys go to doseofrealityshow.com, I know that says The Real News Online. That works too. If you go to doseofrealityshow.com, it'll bring you. You can hit my links, and you can access all my platforms and channels. I'll be on Rockfin, Twitch, Facebook mostly, while my YouTube channels are down. And all my videos are archived on Odyssey. You can find all 17.
Yeah, you are amazing, Brian Staveley, and you know, you just keep doing what you're doing, brother, and keep growing, man, and keeping your own counsel, and you know, this has been part of my thing. Is I don't want to like rely too much on other people, because the truth is within me, but I do want to work with other brothers and sisters in this, because we have to, you know, leadership of some sort to help people up the yellow brick road is essential. So we could end this now, my friend. 3:33.
Yeah. Thank you. And just remember one thing I didn't get to make. Can I make one more point about not living in fear? So people will say, well, Brian, yeah, of course some people died in 9/11 or whatever, because, you know, you really think the government cares about you? I don't think the government cares about me, but the government, we're like cattle to them, livestock to them. They make money off us. They control us. And what the ultimate thing is, they think a lot longer term than you do. They want to keep the operation going. And by keeping all this stuff as fabrications, they're able to keep people involved. People aren't coming out as whistleblowers. And if you approached 100 people that are going to be agents to run an operation like that, you say, hey, going to do this for the good of the country. We're going to compensate you and your family, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, a few thousand people might, you know what? People are actually better than you think. And they're not going to go along with that. But if you present it as you're going to do the and nobody's even going to get hair on their head hurt, they're all going along with it. They're all sold out, you know? So that's my take. I could be wrong. That's my overall look at how all this stuff works. So,
no, I think it's much easier that way. I mean, a lot of people, that's why a lot of people say, oh, the doctors are doing this or they're doing that. No, they're not. They're doing what they believe to be the best. You know, you wouldn't get oncologists if they knew what we knew. They probably wouldn't do it. Or if they heard what we know, they go, no. I know everything, you know, and then they cannot go there for the very reason that it really unseats their entire world. We know, I say this to many people, you know, like, you know, the religious scholars that you talk to, they're all good men, you know, in the main, they're just generally good men, but they've got, you know, a belief that cannot be shaken. And that's it applies to pretty much every it applies to everyone, and it doesn't matter which religion you pick. So we're but yeah, I'm with you, and I think that, you know, a lot of people go along with things because they think it's a drill, and yeah, you don't need to have mass death. But
no, and just think about the things you'd be introducing as well, because now you'd be having real families come at you, real private investigators and attorneys, wrongful death lawsuits, all sorts of things could get over, you know, turned up that you wouldn't want, you know, and you don't need that, you know, and the guilt of everybody's.
Yeah, I might throw one of my crisis actors in as a mother who is going to take some kind of legal action and who gets some newspaper coverage. I think that would be a good one to throw in. So I think that happens too.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, no. I'm much more confident, and that's the crazy thing. It's like, wouldn't you much rather a story in which no one actually died that day? Wouldn't you much rather that?
Yeah.
No, I want to insist they died. They have to die. You know, like, no, they didn't. What about it? And then it's good.
Yeah. So on the 10th of September at night, that's a Saturday night, the night before the anniversary of 9/11, I'm going to do a long show, break down lots of stuff, and I will definitely have a lot of open phone lines. You guys can all call in. You can challenge me in anything you want, question me, tell us your experiences and everything. Yeah. But I'm pooped. I'm starving. I'm ready to rock, Dave. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for coming by tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Have a good night, and I'll see you hopefully very, very soon. Mark on Friday. Bye for now.
All right, brother. Talk to you soon.